I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601. Speaking of robots and maids. Additional update for the leader. I'm Dennis. The sixth leader of this book is born. The outbreak starts early, for 4 consecutive days. Cheer for me with your monthly ticket. Jiang Chen has of course seen Big Hero 6. He certainly couldn't help but be impressed by the cute Baymax, who is usually naive, cool in fighting, and has the attributes of a warm and caring nanny. Even from a commercial perspective, Baymax is one of the more successful cartoon characters created by Disney in recent years. Housekeeping robot? Baymax? Jiang Chen looked at the 3-dimensional concept map on the computer screen with interest, dragging the mouse to adjust the angle of the image. The humanoid structure is covered with polyethylene material on the outside, in order to avoid triggering the horror effect and causing physiological disgust to the user. The robot's head is specially designed to be a long cone, while the other parts still restore the human body structure. The legs are designed to move on pulleys and walk on 2 feet, corresponding to the 2 terrains of flat ground and stairs respectively. It can be seen that Amos is still modest. Not only robots and artificial intelligence, he obviously also has a deep attainment in ergonomics. Sweeping, washing dishes, simple cooking skills, even fixing light bulbs, faucets, and simple carpentry. The functions are good, but will there be a market? Jiang Chen noticed that the robot design drawing said that the skeleton was made of titanium alloy, and the special polyethylene material that wrapped the robot's entire body was not cheap to mass produce. The price of this robot is probably not very affordable. If you are not particularly lazy, you should be able to do some housework by yourself. There is no low-end market, but there is a mid and high-end market. Because of their living habits, Asians may not need it, but Americans will definitely like it. The labor cost in the United States is very high, and Americans are particularly lazy in their lives. It can be imagined that such a housekeeping robot has a very good market prospect in the United States and European countries. As for the Asian market, the sales volume should not be bad for the brand of Future Group. Jiang Chen is more and more satisfied with this robot that remains in the concept map stage. Not only is he very satisfied with this robot, but he is also very satisfied with Amos himself. Strictly speaking, this will be the first near-future product independently developed by the world. This doctor from Munich did not disappoint his expectations. Not only did he digest the computer technology from the end of the world as a beginner, but he also designed this interesting thing. I'm very satisfied with this product, but the primary artificial intelligence database and D++ programming language, I know, these are corporate secrets. This housekeeping robot can be regarded as the property of the Future Group. My only request is that my name be signed as the developer of this robot. Amos said immediately. No, you misunderstood me. Jiang Chen shook his head and continued. You designed the software and the robot, so of course your name will be signed. This robot will be produced by Future Heavy Industry, and I hope you can design the production line together. Future Group will invest $200 million in the project with database authorization, accounting for 80% of the shares of the project. What do you think? Amos was stunned. He really didn't expect Jiang Chen to be so generous. He started researching this housekeeping robot a long time ago, but because of the technical bottleneck, he has always been unable to control the memory occupied by the system program within the range that the main control chip can load. Either reduce the robot's functions, or address in the main control chip with larger memory and stronger CPU performance. But the D++ programming language perfectly solved his problem. By calling part of the primary artificial intelligence database, he was able to make this robot more humane, and the logical response was closer to that of a living human. For this reason, he also designed a smart program for this robot similar to Xiaobei in Future Man 1.0, so that the robot can have daily conversations with users. It can be said that without the primary artificial intelligence database and D++ programming language provided by Future Man Group, he would not have been able to complete this next generation housekeeping robot. What's more, He used the laboratory of Future Man Group to complete the final design of the robot. Legally speaking, this robot is also the property of Future Man Group. So when Jiang Chen talked about the database authorization issue, he simply said that he would give the robot to Jiang Chen. But he didn't expect that Jiang Chen actually proposed cooperation and shared profits with him. Of course, Amos would not refuse Jiang Chen's generosity because there was no reason to refuse. Out of scientific research spirit, he could not make money by using other people's technology, even if this technology had not been patented and was just a corporate secret of Future Man Group. But this does not mean that he doesn't like money. Of course, he was very grateful to Jiang Chen for making such a move. After all, he had put in so much effort, and it was impossible for him to say that he was not reluctant to give it up. Future Group funded the technology license, and he could take 20% of the profits without taking any risks. This was undoubtedly generous to the extreme. As for designing the production line, it was not a difficult task for a genius like him. Regarding the details of the cooperation in the production of this housekeeping robot, I hope you can refer to a few opinions. But before that, can you ask your daughter to step aside? Jiang Chen smiled and glanced at the little girl standing at the door of the living room. Amos nodded, told his daughter to close the door of the living room, and looked at Jiang Chen again. Is it something that is inconvenient for outsiders to hear? You can rest assured that my Miriam is very sensible. It is true that it is inconvenient for outsiders to hear, but it is not because of this, but rather because it is a little difficult to say. Jiang Chen lowered his voice, leaned forward to Amos, suppressed the embarrassment in his heart and said, speaking of artificial intelligence, robots, and maids, these three keywords, didn't you think of adult toys? How could you think of it? It's more strange if you can't think of it. As a result, the two almost quarreled. Statistics show that the overall market demand for adult products in China in 2015 exceeded 50 billion. From 2006 to 2016, the industry's compound growth rate reached 30%. It ranks first among all unpopular and highly profitable industries. As for how large the global market size is, there is no reliable data to estimate it for the time being, but no matter from which angle you think about it, it will not be a small number. Note that this is a discussion of market size. It is too wasteful to just use robots for housekeeping. They have artificial intelligence and polyethylene materials that can imitate the touch of human skin. Why not design products that meet more needs of single people based on existing robots? Where can you find a girlfriend, boyfriend, who can do housework, cook, warm the bed, and never be willful? Of course, there must be an all-age household robot that only has the ability to do housework, but of course there must be an R18 high simulation household robot. However, in this way, Amos's workload will increase. Although he has studied ergonomics, he has no knowledge of adult products. In addition, a series of new elements such as facial expression simulation, introduction of personality and emotion entries in the primary artificial intelligence database, new postures, etc., need to be designed in. In order to reduce his workload, Jiang Chen increased the budget of the laboratory and asked him to form a project team to design this high simulation robot that is still in the conceptual stage. In addition, before leaving the laboratory, Jiang Chen repeatedly reminded him, the program in the chip must be encrypted by the packaging software provided by the group. The primary artificial intelligence database is one of the core technologies of the Future Group that leads the world. Even if the D++ programming language will be open to the present world soon, the artificial intelligence database will never be released so early, unless the Future Group gains a new advantage. After dealing with these things, Jiang Chen returned to the end of the world and found Du Yankang with the software designed by Amos. The designer of this program has at least C-level computer skills. After testing the program for a while, Du Yankang pinched his chin and reluctantly nodded. If this guy came to your company to apply for a job before the war, would you hire him? Jiang Chen asked. Unable to figure out what the marshal meant, Du Yankang touched his chin and thought for a moment, then carefully said, ability assessment is only part of the application criteria. The game company I worked for before the war valued employees' creativity and work enthusiasm more. This kind of work at the level of a college student's graduation project, at least it can prove that his university education was not in vain. My department may want it, but it may not. Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. If Amos, the former professor at the University of Munich, heard that the program he had designed with great effort was only at the level of a college student's graduation project in Jiang Kang's eyes, I wonder if this young double-degree doctor, who is called a genius, would grab his neck and fight with him. It is said that Europeans have a tradition of fighting with fists, whether they are in meetings or discussing academic issues. Can you bring him to our department? Jiang Kang said immediately when he saw Jiang Chen was about to leave. Didn't you say that his level is only at the level of a college student's graduation project? Jiang Chen rolled his eyes and asked. Even if he is a high school student, our department is really short of staff. At least we have a C level. We have reached the standard. But you promised us that as soon as there is a suitable person, we will transfer him to our department. Seeing Jiang Kang start to cry and ask him for someone again, Jiang Chen left without saying a word before he started to flatter him. Chapter 602 I promise. When leaving the community center, Jiang Chen happened to meet Wang Qing, who was walking from the warehouse. He once again told her about the shortage of staff in the software development department and asked about the progress of the warp engine research and development of the Institute of Aerospace Science and Technology. After learning that the research on the warp engine was progressing slowly, Jiang Chen pondered for a moment and then gave an order. Put the warp engine aside for now. Tell him to help me restore the technology related to the space elevator first. Space elevator? But that thing can only be built at the equator, and the terrifying amount of engineering is absolutely unbearable for us. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Wang Qing looked at him in surprise and said, the Eden project alone is already costly enough. As for the space elevator, it is an even more fantastic proposal for NAC now. All I need is the technical documents. I know that the survivors settlement does not have the production conditions. Seeing that Jiang Chen still insisted on his opinion, Wang Qing did not try to dissuade him. After all, Jiang Chen was the marshal of NAC, and she was just the head of the logistics department, and had no right to ask about the marshal's decision. After returning to the villa, Jiang Chen found Linling, who was soaking in the laboratory, and asked about the matter that he had always been concerned about. Time travel is prohibited? This is a serious problem. Sitting back in the chair, Linling held the back of her head with both hands and thought seriously, and the lollipop in her mouth made a sound of knocking against her teeth from time to time. Have you made any progress? Jiang Chen asked. No. Linling said very straightforwardly. Can you describe the situation in detail? Jiang Chen described the situation in Cagayan in detail, including the relationship between the Black Ship organization and the colonial ship, their conspiracy to assassinate him, and the sudden outbreak of the zombie virus. Can I open the storage space, but not time travel? Linling put her fingers on the thin stick in her mouth and muttered to herself, it seems that there are some clues. But is this theoretically feasible? What is it? Jiang Chen asked immediately. Linling took out the lollipop, sighed, walked to the whiteboard beside the laboratory wall, and picked up a black marker. I remember explaining the multiverse theory to you a year ago. These are two parallel lines, and you are a grasshopper on one of them, a grasshopper that can jump between the two lines. Because for you, there is a door between the two lines. There is a circle between the two lines. It must be said that Linling's painting skills are as bad as ever, but this does not prevent Jiang Chen from understanding. The crane particle uses you as a node, which is equivalent to your two hands holding two lines respectively, so it can move freely in the two worlds. I guess this point is called a singularity. Singularities have different explanations in astronomy and physics, but in the final analysis, they can be summarized as independent and finite points in the universe. Everything that happens here cannot be explained by conventional science, or human knowledge and experience are not enough to explain it. For example, 1 plus 1 equals 2 in other places, but 1 plus 1 equals 3 at this point. Classical physics does not apply here, and there is even no physical quantity. And Jiang Chen's existence at this moment is just such a singularity-like existence. Even if Linling used all the most cutting-edge physics knowledge at the end of the 22nd century, she could not explain why he could open that door. Jiang Chen also couldn't explain this feeling. Crossing the two worlds was as easy for him as breathing and drinking water. It was as if the door was right in front of him, and he just stretched out his foot. Ordinary people can't see or touch this door, even if they spend their whole lives. But now there is a little accident. Linling added a dot on the line representing the present world, representing the colony ship. Now there is an unfriendly neighbor in the room, who used to come from the other side of the door. After thousands of years of research or evolution, cultivation, in short, he touched the edge of the door and finally saw the door he had passed through but never seen before. But, Linling changed the subject, threw away the marker, and pointed the lollipop in her hand at Jiang Chen. He still can't pass through this door, because the key is in your hand. I have to say, you are probably the luckiest man in this universe. Lucky. Jiang Chen did not deny her statement, but he couldn't be happy at the moment. After a pause, he continued, they can see the door, but what does this have to do with my inability to travel through time? Through special means to interfere with the movement of clean particles. You should have discovered in the end times that those bugs have mastered the application of clean particles to perfection, including the one in my body. Linling stretched out her fingers and tapped her port chest. The clean particle beam it emits can cause almost all electronic devices to crash. In this case, I'm not surprised that they can develop other uses for clean particles. To put it simply, your neighbor's missiles are stronger than yours. Although they can't open the door without a key, they can use brute force to hold the door for a period of time and prevent you from opening it. What a disgusting neighbor. What about the storage space? If they can see the door, why don't they seal the storage space together? Jiang Chen asked, puzzled. If the storage space is sealed, he can be killed on the plane. After all, he has to take out the power armor or other slow falling objects from the storage space, and he will fall to his death on the plane. Your storage space is more like a circle between two parallel lines. It is independent of the positive universe, but not in the negative universe. Since they are not in this room, they naturally cannot interfere. Jiang Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Linling's explanation. But even so, he still did not have much confidence in this war that would last more than 100 years. Are they still evolving? These bugs are really restless. Jiang Chen sighed. Let's not talk about this. How is the situation on your side? The Eden project. It will probably be completed in half a year. Humph. After all, it's Linling's mouth curled up, and just as she was about to brag, she was ruthlessly interrupted by Jiang Chen. How much do you think I spent to build this Garden of Eden? The material cost alone must be $200 million US. Okay. Jiang Chen complained fiercely. $200 million US for materials. If converted into credit points issued by NAC itself without considering market saturation, it would be an astronomical figure. As the initiator of the project, Linling naturally knew how much of the budget she had burned, so she looked aside awkwardly. Well, let's not talk about money. This is an epoch-making project. You can't just look at the economic benefits. You seem to be right. After all, it's my backyard, and maybe I'll have to live in it in the future. After complaining, Jiang Chen put the greeting gift pudding in his hand on the edge of the table, and then walked towards the door. As if she saw something from his face, Linling pursed her lips, and hesitated for a moment, and spoke when Jiang Chen put his hand on the door handle. Don't be discouraged. Even if they have mastered the secret of the door, they are still afraid of you, so there must be something about you that scares them. For example, Jiang Chen asked without turning his head. You need to discover it. After a pause, Linling smiled, and her elf-like silver hair exuded a rare warmth under the sunlight passing over the window eaves. If possible, I want to eat a lot of pudding. Mango flavor. Stopping at the door, Jiang Chen turned around and responded to her expectations with a smile. I promise. Chapter 603, Great Steel Making. This time, Jiang Chen took 3 things with him when he left the apocalypse: a quasi-experimental quantum computer covering an area of 40 square meters, an industrial-grade 3D printer, and 100 amphibious engineering robots. The 40 square meter quantum computer was placed in the backyard of the villa like a rockery. If Jiang Chen's storage space had not undergone a qualitative change, the quantum computer might not have been able to be moved. No. L0008. This quantum computer was produced in 2150 and has a history of more than 40 years. It is used as a subframework of the virtual reality system of Suzhou and Hangzhou province, providing basic virtual reality access services for users throughout Suzhou and Hangzhou province. It is called quasi-experimental only because its computing power is still a step behind that of experimental quantum computers, but its memory and multi-threaded processing functions have already stood at the top of civilian-grade quantum computing. This computer was kept in a special shelter during the war. Recently, this shelter in Suzhou City was opened. Upon learning that NAC was interested in high-tech products, the big mine immediately sent its minions to control the shelter. Faced with the strength of NAC, the boss of the big mine did not dare to ask for a high price. He sold all the scientists and quantum computers in the shelter to Jiang Chen Wu's caravan at a price of 1 million credit points, and then sold them to the NAC military government by Zhao's group. After more than a week of repair and maintenance, this antique was finally able to work. The computing power of virtual reality online games is terrifying. The quantum computer currently running on the bottom floor of the future building is already enough to load the operation of the god-level continent. In order to build a virtual reality network, the number of quantum computers Jiang Chen needs will be an astronomical number. According to Jiang Chen's knowledge, shelter number 27 has currently allocated 40% of its scientific research index to the restoration of quantum computer technology. In addition to the heavy electromagnetic naval guns under research, this is already the highest priority scientific research project. The operation of this quantum computer will indicate that the virtual reality business of the future group has the hardware conditions to expand into a wider field. It also means that the power grid of Koro Island will be overwhelmed again. As for the industrial grade 3D printer and 100 amphibious engineering robots, Jiang Chen has other uses for them. Ever since the Guardian class frigate of starring trade entered the Sulu Sea and coerced the Philippines to recognize the independence of the Moro Kingdom in front of the United States, New Guinea's attitude towards this powerful little neighbor immediately became respectful. Originally, the New Guinea government was wary of Starring Trade, a semi-military company, increasing its influence in its territory, and the local government was very uncooperative with the Future Group's investment in the country. They welcomed the money of the Future Group, but not the people of the Future Group. Now they dare not welcome it. The sovereign country Australia cannot bring them more sense of security, and even the United States has made concessions. What kind of trump card does the New Guinea hold? The Prime Minister of New Guinea does not know, so he adopted a conservative strategy. At least they have not shown any hostility at present. Their investment in New Guinea has indeed promoted economic development and brought benefits to the local people. As for the pollution of the environment by heavy industry, no matter who opens the factory, it will also pollute the environment. At least before they plot something bad, don't anger this borderless dictator. What if they support the cannibals in the jungles of New Guinea to establish a nation this time? At noon, Jiang Chen arrived at Port Vanimo in northern New Guinea by private plane, where he met Luke Joyce, chairman of the BHP mining group. 10 million tons of iron ore, 20 million tons of aluminum ore. Shit, are you sure you didn't fill in an extra zero? As soon as they met, before they even said hello, Luke caught Jiang Chen and asked, "This is just the first batch of goods. I remember that there are 50 million tons in total in our agreement." Jiang Chen just smiled faintly at the suspicion in Luke's eyes, without any explanation. The two had an unpleasant incident some time ago. BHP Group sent commercial spies to Future Group to try to steal seabed mining technology, and Jiang Chen's ghost agent killed all the mice they hired. But standing here, the two of them did not mention that incident at the same time. Even if you build an aircraft carrier, you won't need so much steel. Aircraft carrier? Who said I want to build that? Jiang Chen laughed. What do you want to do? Luke frowned. Trade secrets. Facing Luke's questioning, Jiang Chen said mysteriously. Jiang Chen's mysterious expression tickled Luke's heart. However, this oriental man had no intention of revealing any information, which made him helpless. According to the agreement at the Rothschild dinner, Future Mining made concessions on deep-sea mining technology, and BHP Group supplied Future Group with a maximum of 50 million tons of ore at 80% of the market price. 30 million tons of ore was discounted by 20%, which was close to the cost price of some ore production of BHP Group. Although Luke felt a little painful, because he could not make much money, he was relieved when he thought of the long accumulated ore inventory. A total of 30 million tons of ore were continuously pulled into the port of Vanima by the ships and containers of China Ocean Shipping Group and sent to the steel mills in northern New Guinea. The boilers of the steel mills were running day and night, and the workers worked in 3 shifts on the production line, processing batches of steel and aluminum into specified shapes under the instructions of the senior engineers of Future Group. As early as when Jiang Chen came back from Germany last time, these steel mills were invested and built one after another. As of the last diplomatic visit of the Vice President of New Guinea to New Guinea, Future Mining had a total of 10 large steel mills in the northern province of New Guinea, and a total of 27,000 New Guinean workers worked for Future Mining. This is almost catching up with the total population of New Zealand. The industry centered on the steel mill has obviously boosted the economy of Port Vanimo. The overtime pay offered by Future Group is very high, and the New Guineans working in the steel mill have become the first to get rich. With money, you naturally have to spend. Restaurants, supermarkets, bars, shopping malls and even cinemas, these facilities that the civilians of Port Vanimo dared not even think about, have sprung up like mushrooms after rain. Those low-rise red brick houses were demolished one after another and replaced with cement houses, apartment buildings and even villas built by Starring Trade. These lands were sold to Starring Trade by the Port Vanimo municipal government. These officials who have tasted the sweetness are eager to give all the undeveloped land in the city to Starring Trade for contracting. As for the central government's vigilance against Starring Trade, increasingly serious pollution, who cares? Before modernization, the cities in New Guinea were originally ruled by various tribes. Up to now, local governments still have a high degree of autonomy. The exponential growth of local tax revenue has made the mayor very happy, so he naturally won't think about making things uncomfortable for the Future Group. A good company can revitalize a city, and this sentence is perfectly interpreted by the Future Group. Boxes of industrial products are pulled to the port by trucks and loaded onto ships bound for Anchor Island, like a blood vessel from New Guinea to New Zealand, forming a landscape that the locals are accustomed to. Some of these goods are sent to the assembly plant on Anchor Island to be assembled into household robots and mix-1 batteries. However, the vast majority of the goods are dragged into a semi-enclosed warehouse. Chapter 604 Expanding to the Ocean. A total budget of $20 billion US. Are you planning to build an aircraft carrier? Xia Xiaoyu pinched her temples and said with a headache $20 billion US, converted into RMB, is more than 130 billion. Although Future Group has money now, it can't spend it this way. And according to Jiang Chen, this is only the quotation for the first phase of the project. Why are you thinking about aircraft carriers? Even the Nimitz class only costs 4 billion. Okay. Jiang Chen sighed and said in a joking tone. Xia Xiaoyu's eyebrows jumped, took a deep breath, and asked after stabilizing her impetuous emotions. The budget for 5 aircraft carriers, can I know what you are going to do? Of course. After all, it's not something worth keeping secret. Jiang Chen paused and continued. I plan to build a city. City? Xia Xiaoyu was stunned and didn't react to what Jiang Chen was talking about. What kind of city needs so much steel? And those foam aluminum, polyethylene materials? That's right. Jiang Chen nodded seriously. After staring into his eyes for a long time, Xia Xiaoyu sighed. Okay, I'll make arrangements later. I'll talk to the finance staff about the budget. The approval documents can be placed on your desk before the end of get off work at the latest. Just sign and give them to me. Jiang Chen was a little surprised that Xia Xiaoyu nodded so quickly. As if she saw the surprise in his eyes, Xia Xiaoyu's mouth curved, but her serious expression remained unchanged. But as the CEO, I still need to remind you. Although future human tourism is profitable, even under ideal circumstances, it will take at least 5 years to recover the $10 billion investment. I know. Jiang Chen nodded. But this project is not just a tourism project, and its significance is not just in terms of profit. What I said now may be a bit abstract, but when I send you the plan and the project concept map, you should be able to understand what I mean. You are the boss. You don't need to explain to me. Raising her finger to push the frame on her notes, Xia Xiaoyu smiled and said, besides, I believe in you. Because you can always create miracles. Xia Xiaoyu kept the last half of the sentence in her heart. Let's not talk about this. Speaking of which, you should find a secretary. Aren't you my secretary? Jiang Chen said with a grin. Xia Xiaoyu glared at him with a fake anger, raised her hand and coughed, then calmed down and said, no kidding, let's be serious. Jiang Chen sat upright, waiting for her next words. With the current growth rate of the group, my workload and business decision making may increase, and I may not have as much free time as before. For example, it is better to leave the work of organizing documents, referring to decision making opinions, pouring coffee, etc. to professionals. After speaking, Xia Xiaoyu added, this is more efficient. Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Chen said seriously. The shadows on both sides of her bangs hid the light red on her cheeks. Xia Xiaoyu looked at the documents in her hand and whispered, it's okay. Humph, you have a conscience. After a pause, Xia Xiaoyu put the documents she had been holding for a long time on Jiang Chen's desk. I have a few resumes here. These talents are impeccable in terms of academic qualifications and abilities. Some are from Harvard and some are from Imperial College. They are also very interested in working for you. You can see which one is more suitable, and I can arrange an interview for you. Okay, thank you. Jiang Chen picked up the documents on the table, leaned back in his chair, and flipped through them casually. It always feels like a eunuch helping the emperor choose a concubine. Shaking his head to dispel the improper thoughts in his mind, Jiang Chen carefully examined the resumes. Li Guangwei, male, 36 years old, PhD in economics and management, Fudan University, worked as a department manager in Microsoft Windows project department, and was later poached by Google. Lutz Jamie, male, 40 years old, PhD in economics, Imperial College London, worked as an economic development consultant in California, USA. Wang Xiao, male, 27 years old, master's degree in human resources at Tsinghua University, worked as a human resources manager in Huawei Company. It is indeed as Xia Xiaoyu said, these talents are impeccable in terms of academic qualifications and abilities. However, looking at these resumes, Jiang Chen always felt that something was wrong. After a while, he found out what was wrong with a smile. These resumes. Why are they all men? When Jiang Chen thought about sitting in the office every day, asking him questions, serving tea, pouring water and making coffee, it was a man, and his mood suddenly became bad. Being capable is one thing, but he should also have some passion for work as the chairman. Although he understood Xia Xiaoyu's thoughts, he still felt a little hurt when he realized this. Where is the trust between people? Is this chairman that kind of person? Even if it's a female secretary, even if she looks good, I won't do anything. Okay. Probably. Jiang Chen himself also found out that his ability to resist temptation has never been very strong. And Xia Xiaoyu, who found this, helped him cut off the inducement, which is understandable. After all, she is the CEO of the group. For the sake of the group's development, it is reasonable to properly control the chairman's desire. After stuffing the resume file into the drawer, Jiang Chen called the group's human resources department and asked them to prepare a few more resumes and send them over. Sure enough, he still couldn't accept that a grown man was hanging around in his office all day. Putting aside the selection of the secretary for the time being, compared to these insignificant episodes, Jiang Chen has more important things to deal with. As he said to Xia Xiaoyu, he plans to build a city, not on land, but on the sea. With the development of the new country's economy, a large number of foreign workers and tourists have poured into the new country. The Pandu Islands, which were not large in size, have become crowded in an instant, and the originally spacious residential land has also begun to become tight. Although it is not to the extent that these indigenous people who have enjoyed the dividends of economic development cannot buy houses, it has undoubtedly increased their cost of living and raised the threshold for immigration. Even if the new country has the economic conditions for population growth, how many people can be squeezed into the islands that are not large in area? The new country has a vast territory, but not on land, but on the sea. Backed by the vast high seas of the western Pacific Ocean, the new country does not have any territorial disputes in the east. Such a unique geographical advantage, if it is not utilized, it is really a waste of natural resources. The next strategic focus of the future group and starring trade is to expand into the ocean. As the prelude to the space age. Chapter 605 A Hair. Koro Island, near the Future Man building. This area located in the northeast corner of Koro Island has gradually formed a high-tech park representing the most advanced technology of the new country. This is also the most heavily guarded place on the entire Koro Island. The entrance and the fence are guarded by soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons and patrolled by hummingbird drones. The access control does not use ID cards, but only authenticates through iris recognition. The security level here is second only to Jiang Chen's private villa at the northernmost end of Koro Island, and slightly higher than the new country's presidential palace in the city center. But despite this, walking in this science and technology park will not make you feel the slightest bit of depression in a military stronghold. In addition to the patrol team outside the wall, the hummingbird drones usually lurk in the drone hive on standby, and only when the alarm is triggered will they swarm towards the alarm source. The obedient ones lie down consciously, the disobedient ones are beaten down with rubber bullets, and as for those with weapons, they are directly beaten into sieves. In this science and technology park, there is no so-called military stronghold or restricted area, and some special places cannot be entered at all if the authority is not enough. For example, the nanomaterial laboratory located 200 meters away from the building. This bird egg-shaped building was built 2 months ago and was put into use a week ago. The main research project is nanomaterials headed by graphene. The authority level here is second only to the CEO office of each subsidiary of Future Group. In addition to the researchers working here, the number of employees who can enter here in the entire Future Group can be counted on one hand. The entire laboratory cost $140 million, which is currently the most expensive laboratory in Future Group. Although it is a waste of money, compared with other laboratories in the world that study nanomaterials, this investment of $140 million is already very economical. Many experimental instruments cost millions of dollars, and the cost and maintenance costs are amazingly expensive. The reason why the Future Group's laboratory saves money is thanks to the industrial-grade 3D printer brought by Jiang Chen. Many cutting-edge experimental equipment can be produced by themselves. There is also the graphene synthesis cutting machine bought from Zhao Chenwu a long time ago, as well as technical information related to graphene production and application. These things have provided considerable help for the experiment. The scientists standing here may not be the world's top scholars in the same field, but the technology they are exposed to is undoubtedly the strongest in the 21st century. After all, they stand on Jiang Chen's shoulders. When Jiang Chen arrived at the laboratory director in a white coat was standing with other staff members, surrounding an experimental device the size of a rockery, nervously conducting experiments on nanomaterials. Some were responsible for adjusting parameters, some were responsible for recording data, and some were responsible for phenomenon evaluation. There were a total of 11 researchers, and none of them was redundant. The director of this laboratory was named Liu Yuan, male, 47 years old, and a former academician of the School of Materials Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. This old man, who was nearly 50 years old, had black hair and a straight body that looked very tough. He didn't show any signs of old age at all, just like a man in his 30s. It was not easy to invite him to serve as the director of the laboratory. Although the income of scientific researchers in China is not high, if you work at the level of academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, especially in the research direction of materials science, that is linked to national defense, the salary will not be low. According to Liu Yuan himself, including bonuses and social security, he can still make 1 or 2 million a year. But Jiang Chen's annual salary is 10 million. Facts have proved that, as long as the hoe is used well, there is no corner that cannot be dug. However, what really attracted this old professor To bring his few proud students to new country was Jiang Chen's promise of non-bureaucratic free scientific research environment and the most advanced scientific research equipment, as well as the most attractive technical information of future group. Of course, a confidentiality agreement is also indispensable. Since he came to new country, Jiang Chen would naturally not let him go. Jiang Chen stood quietly in the corridor outside the laboratory door, watching these researchers tinkering with experimental equipment through the window, and waited until the experiment was over before opening the door and walking in. How is the situation? Very ideal. Lu Yuan patted the experimental data book in his arms, and said to him with emotion, now I finally understand how terrible the scientific research strength of future group is. Can I understand this as boasting? Jiang Chen said in a joking tone. The implication is that you are the scientific research strength of future group. Lu Yuan laughed, handed the experimental data to his assistant, told him to summarize the experimental data, and then looked at Jiang Chen again. To be honest, I feel very sorry. What a pity. Jiang Chen asked. That's right. Lu Yuan nodded and sighed, putting aside those gimmicks. We successfully produced the first 15-inch single-layer graphene in China using chemical vapor deposition, and also successfully prepared a 7-inch graphene touchscreen. But such a high-strength graphene cable, I never thought I would see it in my lifetime. With it, I'm afraid that the space elevator, that only appears in novels and movies, is not a difficult thing. In the instrument cover in the center of the laboratory, a hair-thin graphene tube is connected between two metal pillars, and this hair is this laboratory. Just now, they tested the strength of this graphene tube in different air pressures and gas environments, and the results were very gratifying. The space elevator is our next strategy, I can tell you in advance. Jiang Chen smiled. If the Chinese Academy of Sciences can also have such a laboratory, even without those technical data, at most 10 years, this hair will be born in China. Lu Yuan sighed to this point, and then shook his head. It is meaningless to say these things now. As the price of entering this laboratory, he has signed a confidentiality agreement with the future group, and cannot leave the new country within 10 years. Jiang Chen just curled his lips at Lu Yuan's sigh. Nonsense. 50% of these experimental equipments are from the mid-22nd century, and more importantly, those technical data are all from the technology of the 22nd century. Of course, Jiang Chen just thought about these words in his mind, and did not say them out loud. As for the source of these technical data, he just explained that they were obtained through commercial means or other channels, and refused to give a more detailed explanation. So, what's there to regret? Jiang Chen smiled. It's a pity that it was Future Group that solved this problem, not the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Lu Yuan glanced at Jiang Chen and said slowly, to be honest, the Academy discussed your problem at the beginning. But no one expected that in addition to artificial intelligence and virtual reality, you have so many abilities. Jiang Chen smiled, and did not respond to this question. He asked, then do you think that, if there is no such a broad stage now, will Future Group still be Future Group? Lu Yuan couldn't help asking, don't you want to make some contributions to your hometown? Of course I'm willing. Jiang Chen said frankly, but before Lu Yuan was about to continue speaking, he changed the subject, and dispelled Lu Yuan's unrealistic idea, but I won't teach you everything I know. Chapter 606 Powerful Graphene. Brothers. We won. We were ahead by 50 votes last night, and retained the 6th place in the category list. Thank you so much. I won't say any more pretentious words. Now that I have received overtime pay, monthly ticket award, I have to start typing. Starting from today, 3 days of explosiveness. This month, let's create more glory. In Jiang Chen's ocean expansion strategy and space elevator plan, nanomaterial research, led by graphene materials, is both the foundation and the core. Most people know that graphite is one of the softest substances in nature. However, what most people don't know is that the so-called softness is only its macroscopic phenomenon. For example, the hexagonal grid stacked one by one, the interlayer structure of graphite is maintained by the least reliable van der Waals force, so it is very easy for the layers to slip relative to each other under the action of external forces, giving people the illusion of softness. But in the direction perpendicular to the plane, graphite is surprisingly hard. According to the latest research results, the maximum pressure that graphene can withstand per 100 nanometers is as high as 2.9 micronewtons. In other words, a pressure of 55 N can break a 1 meter long graphene. Intuitively speaking, a graphene with a thickness equivalent to a plastic food packaging bag requires a pressure of almost 20,000 newtons to tear it apart. In other words, if the packaging bag is made of graphene, it will be able to withstand a weight of about 2 tons. Here we only talk about its strength, not to mention its conductivity, light transmittance, extremely lightweight and its own buff of sterilization and disinfection. It is precisely for this reason that graphene is one of the key research topics in countries around the world. From space elevators to supercomputers, from new generation photon sensors to next generation mobile phone screens, this new material with simple sources but troublesome preparation has been favored by the world at the beginning of this century. It can be said that graphene material is the future. In this regard, Jiang Chen's future group can be said to be at the forefront of the world. Although it has not been made public, Future Group has already used graphene materials in many products. For example, the K1 mechanical exoskeleton currently used by Starring Trade can be seen in the shadow of graphene materials from the access chip to the detachable polyethylene bulletproof plate. Another example is the Phantom helmet and the electromagnetic acceleration track of the seabed mining facility, which are all made of graphene materials. However, application is one aspect. These products are all designed from the end of the world, which does not mean that the Future Group has completely mastered these technologies. In order to digest the technologies brought from the end of the world and apply these technologies in a wide range of fields, Jiang Chen still invested in the establishment of a graphene laboratory and spent money to buy a group of scientists who have made achievements in the field of graphene research to digest and experiment with these advanced technologies. And Liu Yuan did not disappoint his expectations. He returned to shelter number 27 in the end of the world with that hair. After testing by the shelter scientific researchers, it has reached the quality standardization required for the construction of a space elevator, which means that in terms of materials science, the technology of the Future Group has been ahead of the world for at least 20 years. Ships sailed from the port of Animo in New Guinea to Anger Island. Anyone could guess that the Future Group would make a big move. The most sensitive reaction to this was the United States. After all, the two sides had just confronted each other on the issue of Mindanao not long ago. However, what the CIA agents on Anger Island couldn't understand was that after Singapore pulled these roughly processed steel products back to the factory in the country for further processing, they were towed back to the port, loaded on ships and towed to the sea 200 kilometers away, and then thrown into the sea. Throwing them into the sea. Not only the CIA agents were confused, but even the American soldiers who played video games all day on the John C. Stennis were also confused. The people in the White House told them to keep an eye on the movements of the Future Group. Well, then they kept an eye on it. So they released the MQ-8B multi-purpose drone loaded on the aircraft carrier. Fortunately, they released a drone. This unfortunate bird lost contact shortly after flying into the airspace of Singapore. At first, the American soldiers on the aircraft carrier thought it was shot down by Starring Trade and reported the news to the White House. The White House was very angry about this and immediately called Jiang Chen. This time they finally learned their lesson and knew that even if they called Zhang Yaping, he would not be able to make the decision. However, Jiang Chen's reaction was very innocent, saying that he had no idea that a drone had entered the airspace of Singapore, and asked the White House, when did it become so open to break into someone else's house? The White House was immediately embarrassed. However, being a rogue is a compulsory course for politicians all over the world. The newly elected US President Hillary Clinton was as shameless as she was when she took office. After a wave of forced explanations, she asked Starring Trade to allow the US Stennis to send an unarmed salvage ship to salvage the wreckage of the MQ-8B drone in the sea area where the drone lost contact. Jiang Chen did not refuse this, but at the same time, agreed with the White House on a time limit. If the search was not found within 72 hours, it must leave the territorial waters of Singapore immediately. After the White House accepted Jiang Chen's proposal, the US Stennis immediately sent a salvage ship. However, after 72 hours, the salvage ship still found nothing and had to leave the territorial waters of Singapore regretfully under the supervision of the Starring Trade Coast Guard ship. Of course, they found nothing. As early as the MQ-8B drone flew into the territorial waters of Singapore, water drop number 1 set off from the port of Coconut Island. At the same time, Aurora 20 took off from Crescent Island Airport, and after arriving above the drone, it fired an unguided air-to-air missile directly at the target's airspace. The MQ-8B drone was like a fly hitting a spider web. Its electronic parts failed in an instant, and it fell into the sea without warning. At the same time, water drop number 1, which was waiting below, stretched out its mechanical arm, collected the wreckage of the drone into the trawl net, and brought it back to Coconut Island. Neither the White House nor the US John C. Stennis expected that Starring Trade would act so quickly that Captain Hoffman couldn't help but doubt it. Was it really bad weather? But if it wasn't bad weather at all, but was shot down by Starring Trade's anti-aircraft missiles without anyone noticing. Thinking of this, Colonel Hoffman shuddered, but then he shook his head at his unrealistic idea. It is not difficult to shoot down the MQ-8B. After all, this thing is not advanced, but it is impossible to keep the US John C. Stennis unaware of it. Apart from anything else, within a radius of hundreds of nautical miles, any anti-aircraft missile that rises to the flight altitude of the drone will be captured by the aircraft carrier's radar. However, what Colonel Hoffman did not know was that their radar was simply a joke in front of the stealth capability of the Aurora 20. It is not only the United States that is paying attention to the actions of Starring Trade. Malaysia is also very concerned about this small neighbor. However, unlike the world rogue, Malaysia's concern is not on the military level, but in an economic sense. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607 Envious Neighbors. No matter how the United States issues white papers to warn neighboring countries of the dangers of the Starring Trade, these countries obviously do not take this insignificant warning to heart. The United States hypes up the China threat theory all day long, but don't you all do business with China very happily? The same reason. In the eyes of neighboring countries, Starring Trade and Future Group have become popular. As for why you say that, just look at Port Vanimo in New Guinea. At the end of 2016, Port Vanimo was just a port town. In addition to a sluggish airport and a half-built road, the economy of the entire city is like a stagnant pool of water, supported by the half-dead original tourism industry and a small amount of wood and ore exports. The Papua province of Malaysia is separated from Port Vanimo by only a straight border line, occupying the west side of Papua Island. This straight border line divides the entire Papua Island into two worlds, one modern and the other primitive. People in Jayapura always complain that the poor people from New Guinea have taken their jobs, polluted their cities, and drank their water. However, with the arrival of Future Group, this sense of superiority has gradually disappeared. Malaysians were surprised to find that Port Vanimo was rising at a visible speed. In just 4 months, the city has expanded in size, and the airport, which was originally sparsely populated, has added 4 or 5 flights. As for the bustling port, 6 or 7 berths had to be expanded. If conditions permit, New Guineans are obviously more willing to stay in their own country than to go to neighboring countries to work. The economy supported by large steel mills has forcibly boosted the local economy with brute force and driven a series of industries. And all this is just the beginning. In February, the successfully listed Ruka Automobile Company passed a board resolution to invest $200 million in Port Vanimo, New Guinea to build a factory to produce pure electric vehicles and officially enter the Asian market. Future Biology also moved the seaweed breeding base to Port Vanimo to supply raw materials for the nutritional mixture production line on Anger Island. The parts production plant for domestic robots was also placed near the port of Port Vanimo. The population and land resources of Anger Island are in short supply. The transfer of these labor-intensive industries to developing countries is a strategy that Future Group has implemented since the beginning of 2017. New Guinea, with its low government presence, weak national defense, and rich labor and mineral resources, has fortunately become the target of Jiang Chen. Without the constraints of policies, Future Group is like a hungry capital beast, taking a bite in the east of New Guinea. 30% of the residents of Port Venimo work for Jiang Chen, and 50% of them are directly or indirectly supported by Future Group. It took Future Group only 4 months to do all this. For such a behemoth, even if the New Guinea government is wary, the local government will not easily offend Jiang Chen for the sake of the above orders. Apart from anything else, Jiang Chen can make 50% of the people in the city lose their source of livelihood with just one sentence. Without Future Group and starring trade, how chaotic will this city be? In a sense, Future Group is like a drug to the local government of Port Venimo. Visionary officials certainly know that it will not be good in the long run, but even if they know this clearly, they can't quit. In any country, promotion requires political achievements, and Jiang Chen has what they need most. The government of New Guinea has not thought about splitting up Future Group's domestic industries through antitrust investigations. But as soon as the National Assembly began to discuss this issue, a group of indigenous demonstrators holding signs immediately appeared in Port Venimo, standing at the door of the local government, to protest against tax rates and racial issues, demanding the independence of Port Venimo. New Guinea is afraid. Of course, they are not afraid of a few demonstrators, but they are afraid that Papua Island will become the second Mindanao Island. When starring trade goes crazy, it dares to beat even the younger brothers of the Americans. And it's beaten in front of them, and it's beaten without mercy. No one mentioned the antitrust investigation again, whether it was the governor or the congressman. After protesting for a while, the demonstrators also lost interest and stopped protesting, and returned to the steel plant to work honestly. Of course, these are all minor episodes. The Future Group generates hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue for local finances every month. Even for these foreign exchange, local governments dare not offend the people of the Future Group. Otherwise, those demonstrators would not be able to return to work in the factory safely, and it would be impossible for them not to stay in prison for 10 days or half a month. It is precisely because of the hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign exchange that New Guinea's neighbor Malaysia is jealous. They are not worried that the Future Group will overthrow their regime. After all, their strength is not comparable to that of the third-hand goods of the Philippine army. The mixed air force of all countries has both the Russian MiG-29N and the American F-18 Hornet. Although the Malays are not good at fighting, the only air force in Southeast Asia that can compare with them is Singapore. The Malaysian Minister of Commerce and the Minister of Energy visited Koro Island twice respectively. They met with Zhang Yaping and Jiang Chen at the same time, sending positive signals to the Future Group. We have labor and resources here, and we have basic industries to support us. Everything that New Guinea has, we have in Papua province on the same island of Papua, and more than them. The words were so clear that they almost said, "Come and invest here, as soon as possible." However, Jiang Chen did not respond to the enthusiasm of the two ministers at that time, but only vaguely stated that, if Singapore Trade and Future Group needed to expand their business, they would consider cooperating with the resource-rich Malaysian side. However, after the polite words, Future Group did not make any move. The most anxious is the local government of Papua province. Seeing the rise of the poor country next door, the people of Jayapura city hate the poor ghosts from New Guinea coming to work in their city. But when these poor ghosts all ran back to their hometown to work, and the waiters from New Guinea were no longer seen in the restaurants and McDonald's throughout the city, the citizens of Jayapura city began to worry again. The sudden surge in the labor shortage has led to a significant decline in the quality of life in Jayapura city, and the economic growth rate has also slowed down. Without these foreign laborers, will the people in Jayapura city have no unemployment rate? Obviously not. While losing foreign laborers, Jayapura city also lost foreign consumers. The turnover of stores has declined, the performance growth of companies has slowed down, and the number of jobs will naturally decrease. The more developed the city, the more dependent it is on connections with the outside world. As for what impact the rise of Port Venimo has on Jayapura city, the capital of Papua province in Malaysia, it is not entirely based on the rise of Shenzhen Stock Exchange and the decline of Hong Kong, so I will not go into too much detail here. Finally, Malaysia, unable to sit still, Sent people again. Chapter 608. If possible, happy cooperation. In the environment where foreign capital continues to flow out, if the neighboring future group can be attracted to invest, it will undoubtedly be a very tempting option for Malaysia, which is eager to revive its economy. With the speed of business expansion of the future group, there is probably no one who can match it, even if you look all over the world. In order to catch up with this rocket that is advancing by leaps and bounds, Malaysia sent a visiting team to Singapore for the third time. The visitor this time is a prestigious member of the House of Representatives of Malaysia and an economic development consultant for Papua province. Although the official of this visitor is not as high as the previous 2 times, this visitor has a dual background in the Malaysian government and the local government. This means that he has enough chips with him. In addition, this guy's name is Ueda, and he is also a Chinese. Chinese faces are not uncommon in Malaysia, but they are undoubtedly panda level in the Malaysian political arena. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen. I have heard of your name for a long time. As soon as they met, Ueda, who was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, extended his hand enthusiastically and greeted Jiang Chen. After some pleasantries, at Jiang Chen's invitation, the congressman sat down on the sofa in the reception room. The receptionist came forward and poured 2 cups of tea for the two. According to the basic process of diplomatic visits, he had already gone to the presidential palace to shake hands with the president of Singapore. However, when facing Jiang Chen at this moment, his demeanor and movements still seemed very reserved. Obviously, he had done enough homework before coming and knew that the person in front of him was the real boss of Singapore. I believe Mr. Jiang already knows the purpose of my visit. Last time, Minister Finnick expressed our welcome to your investment in Malaysia. Ueda paused, looked at Jiang Chen with bright eyes, and said sincerely, I wonder what you think about it? To be honest, I'm still considering it. Picking up the teacup and taking a sip, Jiang Chen smiled and said slowly. Ueda was not discouraged, but joked with Jiang Chen. As the old saying goes, 3 visits to the thatched cottage can show sincerity. We have visited 3 times. Mr. Jiang will not let us go back empty-handed. That's hard to say. Future Group is doing well in New Guinea. Both the local government and the New Guinea government have cared for his industry. Recently, the Port Vanimo city government is discussing whether to approve the application of the Starring Trade Marine Corps to establish an employee signboard base in Port Vanimo. If the application is approved, Starring Trade will be able to obtain sufficient manpower from New Guinea, and the yearning for the new country will surely prompt many New Guineans to sign up. After all, if the islanders with a low level of education want to move to Koro Island, where the immigration threshold is gradually increasing, the only way is to join the army. Jiang Chen looked at Ueda with a smile. It seems that Mr. Yu knows a lot about Chinese traditional culture. Of course, my ancestors were Chinese businessmen. They settled in Kuala Lumpur during the Republic of China and later moved to West Papua province. Ueda said with a smile. Then you should know that Liu Bei promised Zhu Jiang a prime minister. After a pause, Jiang Chen leaned forward slightly, looked at him and smiled. So, what can you give me? Mr. Jiang, you can't just look at the benefits. Ueda spread his hands helplessly. After all, I'm representing a country. I have invited you 3 times. Even if it is Apple Group, we haven't invited you so attentively. What was Malaysia's GDP last year? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. $312.7 billion US. Ueda quickly answered. The market value of Future Group is 500 billion, which is just a conservative estimate by Wall Street. This is just an estimate by Wall Street. If it is based on Jiang Chen's psychological price, this number must be doubled. Your statement is too. After sorting out his words in his mind, Ueda said with a wry smile, it's too unreasonable. There's no such thing as unreasonable. Jiang Chen waved his hand, sat up straight, and looked at the Malaysian congressman in front of him. I'm a businessman. Whether I invest depends on what you can provide me. We have the 3rd largest labor market in the world, and the overall economic situation is good. Currently, ASEAN is the 3rd largest force in Asia, and Malaysia is undoubtedly the leader in ASEAN. If you can come here to invest, we are willing to provide you with a series of conveniences such as loans, land, and talent recruitment. But your labor costs are higher than those. Jiang Chen smiled. Take the steel mill as an example. Including overtime pay, the workers in New Guinea only earn $750 per month, while your basic salary without overtime pay is more than $800. It's too unfair to only discuss the average wage level. The education level in our country is one level higher than this, Ueda explained. But Jiang Chen obviously didn't buy his tricks. Do you need education to operate a boiler? Literacy is enough. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued, what's more, we will send at least 5 technicians to each steel plant. As long as we provide good production guidance, even if the workers have a low level of education, it is completely acceptable to our group. Ueda gritted his teeth secretly. He knew that, if he didn't come up with some attractive proposals, he was afraid that this negotiation would not have any results. Although the parliament and the local government had already told him the bottom line before coming, it was not very conducive to bargaining if he brought out the bargaining chips so early. 1 year tax exemption. New Guinea gave us 3 years. Then we will also have 3 years. Thinking of the order agreement between Jiang Chen and BHP Group, Ueda continued. In addition, the ports in Papua province will be exempted from the import tax on iron, aluminum, nickel and copper ores for 3 years for future group. As long as your investment in Malaysia exceeds $2 billion. Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but be slightly moved. They actually exempted all import taxes. In this way, at least $200 million in expenditure will be saved for future group every year. At present future group is expanding its business in a big way, and its working capital is still a bit tight. If it can save this amount of expenses, it will be able to allocate the budget to other more expensive projects. However, just exempting the import tariff on ore is not enough to persuade Jiang Chen, unless they can offer more benefits. You almost convinced me, Jiang Chen said. Can I know where I'm lacking? Seeing Jiang Chen's appetite, Ueda couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. He had already offered all the benefits he could. If future group was still asking for a price and was unwilling to agree, he would not discuss it further. I admit that your conditions are very tempting, but Jiang Chen suddenly changed the subject. We have invested a total of $1.7 billion in industries in New Guinea, and there are plans to invest $5 billion in the future. If you gave up the initial investment of $2 billion because of the policy dividend worth $200 million, would you make such a choice that is obviously unprofitable? If you were in my position, there is still $5 billion. Ueda held his breath. He did not pay attention to the second half of Jiang Chen's sentence because his attention was completely attracted by the first half. What do you want? Ueda murmured. Add one more condition to the previous one, a special pass. Jiang Chen raised a finger. All trucks and employees of future group will be able to travel freely on the border road between Papua province in Malaysia and New Guinea. They need to go through immigration procedures and pay customs duties. This is impossible, Ueda exclaimed. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. It's not just about tariffs, it's also about national security. Even if future group has enough weight, the parliament will never nod to such an absurd proposal. But Jiang Chen didn't care so much and smiled and stretched out his hand to him. If possible, happy cooperation. Chapter 609, Establishment of a Special Zone. Facts have proved that nothing is absolutely impossible. Tax exemption is easy to say, and exemption of tariffs on some goods is easy to say, but the last concession pass makes the Malaysian government a little embarrassed. Although Papua province and New Guinea are both on Papua Island, and there is a road connecting the two countries, any goods passing through this road are subject to tax, especially mineral resources. After all, Papua Island is rich in resources, both in the west and east. The local government of Papua province does not want to see New Guineas ore flow into Malaysia through him and seize its market share. If this concession pass is granted to the future group, it means that the borderline of Papua province does not exist for them. But the $5 billion investment makes it difficult for the Malaysian government to give up. The total investment in 2016 was 174.9 billion Malaysian ringgit, a 6% decline from 186.7 billion Malaysian ringgit in 2015. compared with the terrifying 21% decline in 15 years. Although it has slowed down, the overall economic environment in Malaysia is still not optimistic. Don't underestimate the $5 billion of Future Group. According to the investment performance of Future Group in Port Vanimo, $1 of investment has attracted at least $1.7 of international capital. Even if it is placed on Wall Street on the other side of the earth, Future Group can be regarded as a generous god of wealth. Many investors even keep an eye on the actions of Future Group. Wherever Future Group invests, they will invest. This phenomenon of following the trend of investment is most perfectly reflected in Singapore. At the beginning, the $10 billion project of Future Group attracted at least $13 billion of follow-up investment. It is precisely because of the influx of these international capitals that Koro Island has become a rising pearl in the Western Pacific. Ueda brought Jiang Chen's words back to Malaysia. A week later, the Malaysian government sent a reply letter to Jiang Chen. There were only 4 short words in the letter. Happy cooperation. The Malaysian government issued a document, and with the cooperation of the local government of Papua province, 180 square kilometers of land in the Pasir area on the northeastern border of Papua province was designated as the Bama Special District. Combined with the 40 square kilometers of land that Jiang Chen negotiated from the New Guinea government, Xinghuan Trade now owns 3 Jiang Islands on Papua Island. This piece of land is located in the border area between the two countries. After the establishment of the special zone, the personnel and vehicles of Xinghuan Trade and Future Group will be able to travel freely between the special zone and New Guinea. However, to enter other areas of Papua province from the special zone, border inspection and customs duties must still be paid. In other words, the Malaysian government moved the border checkpoint more than 10 kilometers west. This industrial base built on the border is very similar to the North Korea-South Korea Industrial Park, but there are also differences. In terms of taxation, the two governments divide the tax revenue of the Special Zone 8:2. In terms of management and administration, the Malaysian government still sends a commissioner to be responsible. Jiang Chen is very satisfied with this compromise of the Malaysian government, and it can even be said that it is very unexpected. The Malaysian side is so optimistic about the prospects of the Future Group that it even offers to establish a special zone to attract him to invest. As Ueda said, the education level of the indigenous people of New Guinea is still too low after all, and the productivity of the workers is really related to their education level. This may not be seen from the boilers of the steel plant, but it is still reflected in other factories. For example, a domestic robot parts production plant. To polish the same parts, workers with primary school education need 1 month of on-the-job training, and the average daily parts processing speed is 31 pieces. It only takes 10 days for workers with high school education to be trained on the job, and the average daily parts processing speed is 47 pieces. Many Chinese and Vietnamese workers who entered New Guinea from Papua province have obviously higher productivity than the indigenous people of New Guinea. After the SAR document was issued, the Future People Group negotiated with the SAR government and obtained ownership of a total of 15 square kilometers of land at a symbolic price of $1 per square meter. Then, Future Group took out $1.2 billion of funds and hired 5 Chinese construction companies to build roads, houses and other infrastructure on this 15 square kilometers of wasteland, as well as steel plants, robot parts production plants and chemical plants for producing Mix 1 battery electrolytes, etc., and included the factory built by Future Group in the west of Port Vanimo. It is expected that after the completion of this industrial park, it will provide 117,000 jobs for Papua province. The United States, the White House. The atmosphere in the conference room was a bit dull. A dozen White House think tanks sat around the conference table and exchanged opinions with each other on the documents in their hands. From their faces, you can see shock, disbelief, and more worries. Sitting at the head of the conference table was Hillary. This hardline old woman defeated her opponent Trump in last year's election and won the 16-year election. However, since she took office, she has never been so seriously troubled by something. At this time, a middle-aged man walked into the conference room. The eyes of the conference room all looked at him, including Hillary, who was sitting at the head. Naomi Madden didn't waste any words and handed the documents in her hand to the table. The results of the autopsy report are out. He died of heart failure, suspected to be homicide. A commotion sounded at the conference table. Gordon, the F-35 fighter pilot who parachuted, was found, but not in Mindanao, but in Singapore, 2,000 kilometers away. When the CIA agents found him through various clues, he had been dead for half a month. Why did he suddenly fly away from the combat area while flying the F-35 fighter and bombed Cagayan City? Why didn't he try to contact the headquarters after parachuting, but appeared in Singapore, 2,000 kilometers away? There are too many questions that he took to the grave. However, the CIA is worthy of being the hound of the top 5 gangsters. When searching the pilot's apartment, they found a suspicious diary. 30 pages were torn out of the 41 pages, and a large number of alterations were found on the 31st page. The only recognizable text was a single word. Kurofune, black ship. It's Japanese. We've already discussed this issue. Should we contact the Japanese government? Maybe they know something. I bet $10 that this Kurofune might be a nightclub frequented by our guys in Okinawa. Luke, we're in a meeting now, Hillary said in a calm but dignified tone. The man called Luke immediately shut up and shrugged at his colleagues. Then, Hillary turned his eyes to Naomi, who had just entered the room. You're late, but I guess you should have made some new discoveries, right? Naomi took a deep breath and nodded. Gordon seemed to have been tortured to some extent before his death, but according to the testimony of his neighbors, no one had entered or left his room. Vomit and alcohol were detected in the room. He had been drinking heavily before his death. Get to the point. I'm not here to listen to your retelling of the autopsy report, Hillary said. I was just about to say it. After a pause, Naomi continued, according to the analysis of our intelligence personnel, the black ship should be an organization, and Gordon should have had contact with this organization before his death. However, these are not the most surprising to us. There is indirect evidence that the so-called black ship organization may be related to that thing being studied in our Area 51. When Naomi said the last sentence, the entire conference room was silent. Chapter 610, Robot Xiaolin. As soon as the housekeeping robot was launched, the entire network was once again boiling over the name Future Man. No. AI-00, nicknamed Xiaolin, is the first generation of the concept of artificial intelligence plus service robot of Future Man Heavy Industry. Future Man Heavy Industry finally rejected Dr. Amos's rough design of the robot's appearance, and a professional art team gave Xiaolin a makeover. The original long cone-shaped head was replaced with a human face. At first, the uncanny valley effect really troubled the art team. The more the machine looks like a human, the stronger the physiological rejection. Even if the expression data is continuously imported to enrich the robot's facial expressions. However, the emptiness in the eyes and the stiffness in the details still make people feel a fear similar to looking at the dead. But later, this problem that Dr. Amos couldn't think of a solution to was solved by an undergraduate student from the Fine Arts Department of China. Looking too much like a human will make people uncomfortable, so why not just not be a human? Who said that you have to look like a human to feel beautiful? For example, virtual idols that have been hyped for many years, Hatsune Miku, Luo Shianai, don't they also have a huge number of fans on the internet? The problem is solved. The art team, who suddenly realized the problem, immediately tore down the originally designed face shape and remade it, adopting a 2.5-dimensional character modeling style. Refer to Final Fantasy, bringing the characters that exist in the fantasy world into the 3-dimensional world. 6 basic expressions, 36 derivative expressions adjusted. According to emotional parameters, the emotional expression is far better than the original cumbersome 142 expression difference designs. Xiaolin's official image is set as an 18-year-old black long straight girl wearing a maid skirt and a blonde boy wearing a butler's uniform. Gender, hair color, eye color, bust, personality, and clothing can all be customized according to user preferences. Of course, robots with customized appearances cost extra. If you want your girlfriend to look different from others, most people are willing to pay this amount. What? Are you asking me if the word girlfriend is used in the wrong place? It's true that many people really regard Xiaolin as their girlfriend after buying her home. The AI produced by Futureman Technology is famous for its power. Just like many people still regard Xiaobei as their pet, many people fall in love with this goddess who came out of the fantasy world at first sight. Although the price of $10,000 is not very affordable, it is beyond Dr. Amos's expectation and has created a sales miracle in the Asian market. Especially the sales of the adult version of Xiaolin, which is even better than the all-age version designed for families. Although it only adds a special mold and a special emotion sensor, as well as 18 special movements and expressions designed for certain things, it has been sold on the black market for up to $20,000. This situation is also unexpected for Jiang Chen. If you can afford $20,000, why don't you find a girlfriend? Picking up a girl won't cost more than $20,000. It was not until later that he found out with a smile that it turned out that it was not only single dogs who had no money to get married who bought this thing, but also some people who had money but had special hobbies who were not short of money. Some asked for the height to be as short as possible, some asked for the chest to be G-cup, and some even bought 10 at a time and went back to have a harem. A robot will never be jealous unless the program sets it to be jealous at this time. The American Time magazine once again put Jiang Chen on the cover and wrote a line of words under his headshot in humorous English: "The man who solved the sexual life problems of 240,000 bachelors in the world in 1 month." Jiang Chen's nose was almost crooked when he saw this title. If the content of the report was not quite pertinent, he almost sent out ghost agents to do the work. Currently, 200,000 Xiaolins leave the factory on Angia Island every month, of which 50,000 are household models, and 150,000 are adult models. Originally, each of them produced 100,000 units, but there was no way the adult model sold so well that Future Heavy Industry did not hesitate to cut the production line of the household model, and allocated the production capacity to the production of the adult model. Amos complained to Jiang Chen about this. His epoch-making masterpiece was actually regarded as a sex toy, which was an insult to knowledge. However, he stopped complaining within a month and honestly studied the improved version of Xiaolin. The dividend of $50 million almost scared him. Although he was well known in the international robotics academic community, he had never been so rich. However, unlike Times, Washington Post maintained a cautious attitude towards Xiaolin launched by Future Heavy Industry. In the page reporting on Xiaolin, the image of Terminator holding a heavy machine gun was added. "The White House will be happy. I'm afraid that it will not be long before our soldiers serving in Iraq can go home." However, the White House was not happy. As soon as Xiaolin entered the market, the Pentagon analyzed the possibility of using this highly intelligent robot on the battlefield. Although Xiaolin cannot currently recognize firearms and the program prohibits it from doing things that may harm humans, this does not mean that she does not have the space for weaponization. The conclusions drawn by relevant analysts are also very shocking. If this robot is deployed on the battlefield, the US military's ground combat capability will at least increase by 10%. Most importantly, these soldiers do not need to be paid, and if they die in battle, there is no need to pay any pension or hold a funeral. However, the trouble is that the main control chip of this robot has added protection measures similar to those of the Phantom helmet. Violent disassembly will trigger the high energy capacitor of the protection circuit to discharge instantly, burning the key components of the chip. As for the more critical AI program, technicians from various countries can't even touch the door. Reverse engineering progressed slowly, and the White House had to send an email to the mailbox of Future Group. Raytheon hopes to cooperate with us in the field of robot military industry. They offer a price of $1 billion and hope to purchase the relevant technology of Xiaolin in our hands. China Heavy Industry has also made a similar proposal to us, hoping to win the robot cooperation project with us before Raytheon. Standing in the chairman's office, Zhao Xiao reported to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen glanced at the documents on the table, did not answer, but sighed. Whether it's artificial intelligence or robots, why every time I come up with a technology, there are always people trying to turn it into a weapon. Yesterday, Natasha came to him, and the Kremlin had similar ideas, and hoped to cooperate with Future Heavy Industry. This girl even lowered her voice and threw out the bait of nuclear. Russia can send nuclear experts to Singapore to help it build nuclear power plants and the like. Reject? Zhao Xiao asked. Reject and reiterate the neutrality of Future Group in international affairs. Anyone who attempts to steal or seize Future Group's technology through improper means, Future Group will immediately apply for patents in other countries. Zhao Xiao nodded. I will write your words in a diplomatic reply. In addition, Saudi Arabia also called and mentioned something about robots. Saudi Arabia. Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Xiao in confusion. Are they also interested in our technology? Rather than being interested in technology, it's better to say. After hesitating for a moment, Zhao Xiao looked aside with a slightly embarrassed expression. The royal family over there made a special request. Chapter 611 Taboo. Double during the May Day holiday. It would be a waste if you miss it. Brothers who have votes, please vote. Morning Star thanks you. Jiang Chen never thought that the Saudi prince would come in person. He applied in the morning, and the prince arrived in Coral Island in the afternoon, and stayed at the Hilton Hotel in the heart of the ocean. The plane with the royal emblem landed at the airport of Coral Island. Accompanied by a group of bodyguards in suits, Prince Naif got off the plane. Perhaps because of his royal blood, this prince from an Arab country looks very handsome. He was wearing a traditional Arab white robe. When he saw Jiang Chen who was waiting at the airport gate, he walked over quickly and gave Jiang Chen a warm hug before he could say anything. I finally meet you today, the most successful businessman of this century, Mr. Jiang Chen. After letting Jiang Chen go, Naif said to him in English with a smile. I'm also honored to meet you, Your Highness. Jiang Chen smiled slightly and said modestly, the man standing in front of him might be richer than him. According to the information he learned from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Singapore, Naif in front of him is not only a prince of Saudi Arabia, but also has the status of crown prince. In a dozen years, the king of Saudi Arabia will die, and he will be the one sitting on the throne. According to a Saudi prince, the valuation of Saudi Aramco, the national oil company of Saudi Arabia, will exceed $2 trillion. Although it is not certain whether there is any bragging in it, if this data is true, then Saudi Aramco will undoubtedly exceed the highest market value record of $700 billion set by Apple after listing, and become the largest IPO fundraising in the world. Among the people Jiang Chen knows, it is estimated that only the Rothschild family, whose financial status has never been made public, can compare with these Middle Eastern tycoons to see who has more money. Arriving at the future building by car, Naif was not stingy with his praise when standing at the door. It's a very beautiful building, not inferior to our Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Haha, you've come. Jiang Chen greeted him and invited him into the reception room. After sitting down in the reception room, Naif left his bodyguard at the door. After just 2 or 3 words, they quickly talked about robots. However, the handsome prince seemed to find it difficult to speak out his request. As if he could see his embarrassment, Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Xiao next to him, signaling her to step aside first. After leaving the room, Zhao Xiao closed the door. Seeing that there was no one in the room, Naif seemed relieved. Thank you. You're welcome. We are all men. I understand. Jiang Chen smiled, paused for a moment, and then said, but I have a question. I wonder if Your Highness can answer it for me. Of course it's convenient. Please ask, Naif said politely. Why don't you let others do such a small thing as customizing robots? After all, with your status, it seems a bit inappropriate to go there in person for this matter. Naif smiled. So that's what happened. I came to Coral Island on vacation and brought greetings from the Saudi royal family to Future Group. So the outside world doesn't know that I want to customize a robot. I hope Mr. Jiang Chen can keep it a secret for me. Of course we keep it confidential. We always respect the privacy of our users. So, what kind of robot do you need? Jiang Chen tried his best to put on a smile that would not make people feel embarrassed. After all, asking this question is like asking what size of inflatable doll you want. Just when he thought Naif would say something difficult to say, he didn't expect him to just reach into his pocket and take out a small wooden box. Naif handed over the box in his hand. Taking the mahogany box, Jiang Chen opened the delicate mechanism and found a photo in the box. This is In an instant, he suddenly felt that the photo looked familiar. I always feel like I've seen her somewhere. Jiang Chen suddenly remembered that when he was in Sanya in 2015, he had the honor of attending the birthday party of Middle Eastern prince. The person in the photo was the beautiful princess he had seen at the banquet. Speaking of which, Naef looked familiar, no matter how he looked at her. After looking at the prince for a few times, Jiang Chen confirmed his guess. My princess. Naef's face showed a trace of nostalgia, and he buried his nose in his palms. My beloved. From the sadness in his expression and the beauty in the photo, Jiang Chen probably understood his true intention. Come to think of it, after all, he is the leader of a country. How could he go to Koro Island in person for a doll? However, his wish made Jiang Chen very embarrassed. The dead cannot wake up. You should know that what you pursue is an evil way. Jiang Chen looked into his eyes seriously and reminded him. Have you guessed what I want? You are worthy of being the most successful businessman of this century. I understand everything you said, but I just simply hope that she can come back to me. Naef sniffed and looked at Jiang Chen with a hint of pleading. I'm sorry, please don't refuse me. I'm willing to pay. How much do you want? Seeing Jiang Chen was about to refuse, Naef immediately wanted to stand up excitedly. Calm down first. This is not a matter of money. Jiang Chen said embarrassedly, trying to calm him down. Even if I want to help you, I have to consider the technical conditions of future group. Do you think Xiaolin's design can fill the regret in your heart? The rich are right now. They want to throw money at people when they don't agree with something. That's not what I want. Naef shook his head after calming down. But it's close. If there are technical problems, just solve them. How much investment do you need? 100 million? 1 billion? We can definitely negotiate. Seeing Naef's determination to achieve his goal, Jiang Chen sighed. To be honest, seeing the prince's infatuation, he softened his heart, but still refused. Resurrection of the dead is a taboo in science. Why? I can't explain why. I can only give you an example. If you had a brother who died, and your father resurrected him in the same way, and poured his father's love into him, and made him the emperor. 10 years later, this robot succeeded to the throne. Don't you think it's terrible? She's just a woman. Even if you resurrect her, what can she affect? Naef said emotionally. Facing the pleading in Naef's eyes, Jiang Chen sighed. I promise you, but you have to keep it a secret for me. Naef nodded vigorously with a gleam of joy in his eyes. I promise, I swear, in the name of the true God. This is the highest oath that swords can make. Jiang Chen nodded and asked. Before I help you, I would like to ask, how are you going to cover up the fact that Amira is dead? There should be many people who attended her funeral. I will remarry her and make her my 9th wife. I fell in love with her at first sight on Koro Island. She looks like Amira, and I named her Amira. Naef said without hesitation. Okay, for a moment just now, Jiang Chen thought he was an infatuated man. 9 wives. Jiang Chen originally thought that he was shameless enough, but he didn't expect that he still lost 2 other local tyrants in some aspects. Chapter 612 Living Doll. It's not that I'm bad at geography, it's that I can't write about sensitive issues. In order to avoid stepping on landmines, the article will not mention this country, so Papua province belongs to Malaysia. The prince's attitude of not giving up until he achieves his goal really makes Jiang Chen feel ashamed. Although the future group currently has no special interests in the Middle East, considering the relationship between the future new country and Saudi Arabia, he finally agreed to Naef's request. He got a strand of Princess Amira's hair from him and obtained her DNA. After taking the DNA data back to shelter number 27 and the end of the world, he restored her 20-year-old appearance and then used 3D printing technology to create a cyborg version of the princess. The skeleton is made of titanium alloy and the skin is made of silicone. She has the appearance of Princess Amira and has primary artificial intelligence that is infinitely close to intermediate artificial intelligence. Her memory depends on Prince Naef's memory of her and a diary written by herself. From the outside, she is no different from humans. No, she is no different from humans internally. The moment she was awakened from the present world, she was calling Naef's name. She was terrified of the scientists in the laboratory and mistook them for kidnappers. She threatened Jiang Chen to let her go and threatened him that the Saudi royal family would not let him go. Standing in the operating room, Jiang Chen and Amos looked at each other. Both sides saw the unnatural worry in their pupils. This worry was not caused by the uncanny valley effect. This is evil. This was the first sentence Dr. Amos said after recovering from the shock. That's right. Jiang Chen nodded in agreement. I'm afraid it's more evil than clones. At least clones won't have your memories, drive your car, sleep with your women, and take all this for granted. Got. Amos closed his eyes and made a cross on his chest. Jiang Chen didn't have any more feelings. He just squinted and stared into her eyes until she began to tremble, and then he looked away. He saw the shadow of Lin Chaoan in her. Although the researchers in the shelter swore to him again and again that she only had elementary artificial intelligence and all her actions were just logical responses to the outside world. Although she looked like a human, she was not. She was just a doll. Are you really going to give him to that Saudi prince? Amos asked. Of course. Jiang Chen nodded. Singapore needs allies in the international community. The friendship that can be gained with just a robot is worth it for us. Amos wanted to say something, but seeing that Jiang Chen didn't seem to intend to discuss this issue anymore, he didn't say anything. Putting aside moral ethics, this robot can indeed be called the crystallization of technology. The uncanny valley effect that Dr. Amos racked his brains to overcome was easily overcome by the researchers in shelter number 27. It seems that technology is something that cannot be achieved overnight, and there is still a long way to go in the world. Glancing at her with the eyes of looking at a prop, Jiang Chen threw the clothes on her, then turned and left the laboratory. Memory and so on. I'll adjust it later. Naef stayed on Koro Island for 3 days. According to Wei Yun, CEO of Future Travel, this Saudi tycoon spent a total of $5 million on the Ocean Heart, which really made Jiang Chen a little ashamed. 3 days later, Jiang Chen took Amira to find Naef. Seeing his lover, Naef hugged her excitedly. Amira hugged Naef crying, telling her that she had spent a long time in the dark and missed him in the darkness. Don't cry, my baby, Naef said to comfort her emotions. It should have been a very touching scene, but Jiang Chen felt an inexplicable nausea, so he looked away. After hugging, the beautiful Amira bowed to Jiang Chen and thanked him for saving her from the kidnappers. According to the adjusted memory, she did not die of illness at that time, but was kidnapped from the hospital by the kidnappers. In the end, she was rescued by the Future Group and cured of her terminal illness. Now she is finally reunited with her husband on Koro Island. Because everyone else thought she was dead, Naef made an agreement with her to say that she was just a person with the same name and surname as Amira and a similar appearance. After spending 2 days in the heart of the ocean, Naef said goodbye to Jiang Chen. Before leaving, he asked Jiang Chen about the price. Just consider it a gift from me to you. Because I don't plan to sell this type of robot on the market, let's forget about the cost. Jiang Chen shook his head. Please don't do this, my friend. You will embarrass me. Whether it's money or beauty, please tell me what you want. Naef said seriously. In these days of contact, he has regarded Jiang Chen as his friend. If you really feel embarrassed, just keep this as a secret between us. Jiang Chen sighed and said, why? I can't explain why. Anyway, this is a weird technology. Naef didn't quite understand what Jiang Chen meant, but he still accepted his words and swore in the name of the true God again that he would keep Jiang Chen's secret. Your generosity has won the friendship of the Saudi people. Naef took a deep breath and bowed to Jiang Chen. Anyway, I owe you a favor. When I become king, I will definitely repay you. My gift is not a loss, to gain the friendship of the future king. Jiang Chen laughed and finally gave him a few more instructions. Robots will not get sick, so never take her for a physical examination. Robots cannot produce blood. Although they are designed with blood vessels in their bodies, never let her get seriously injured. You must not disassemble it privately, otherwise the protection mechanism will burn the chip. She does not need to be charged, but she needs to eat. The digestive system is her only source of energy. Jiang Chen personally sent the prince on the plane. Before boarding the plane, Naef hugged him again and expressed his gratitude to him. If you come to Dubai, Please contact me. Definitely. Jiang Chen waved his hand and smiled as he sent the couple on the plane. Looking at the flight disappearing into the sky, the smile on Jiang Chen's face gradually relaxed. After a while, he suddenly said to himself, maybe I shouldn't have agreed to him. Aisha, who was standing next to Jiang Chen, looked at him in confusion. If machines are used to replace dead people at will, then no one will die in this world. 100 years later, the last human being dies of illness in bed, watching those relatives and friends who don't know whether they are people or machines say goodbye to him, and then take out his own substitute the moment he closes his eyes. Just thinking about it, he felt chilling. Chapter 613 Workers at Sea. On the surface of the western Pacific Ocean, this place is 200 kilometers away from Coral Island. The buoys with anchor chains rise and fall with the waves, connected by ropes, drawing a circle on the sea surface. 8 engineering ships surround this 5 square kilometers of sea area, anchored here like an offshore platform, and carry out construction procedures day and night. The workers on the ship implement a shift system, taking turns to go ashore for rest every Monday. There is a Guardian-class frigate on standby next to it, and the majestic electromagnetic naval gun stands at a 45-degree elevation angle, guarding the surrounding seas. Although the Philippines can no longer allocate more Coast Guard ships to harass the waters of Singapore, the necessary warning procedures are still indispensable. The John C. Stennis is staring at this place with a covetous eye. Although they dare not send out drones again, they cannot guarantee that they will not use underwater reconnaissance equipment. The Guardian-class frigate is equipped with anti-submarine radars and paperback NK 330mm anti-submarine torpedoes, which can have a certain deterrent effect on underwater units that try to approach. At this time, a large ship loaded with hundreds of containers approached and stopped next to an engineering ship. The man in the white shirt threw a towel on his shoulder, walked to the side of the machine, and pulled down the joystick. The iron bridge was built between the engineering ship and the ship, and several soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons and holding rifles boarded the ship. The captain hurriedly greeted them and walked around the ship with these soldiers from Starring Trade. After confirming that there was no problem, the foreman on the ship began to shout and call on the workers to work. The goods were divided into 2 batches, one was taken on board, and the other was thrown into the sea by a mechanical arm. After finishing the work at hand, the man in the white shirt threw the wrench aside, lifted the towel on his shoulder, and wiped the sweat off his face, then watched with empty eyes as the mechanical arm clamped the heavy container and unloaded it into the sea. Zhao Qiang. All the workers who knew him called him Qiangzi. He came to the ship 2 months ago, and he recruited online. Among these workers, his education level is relatively high, although he only went to high school. In the coastal areas of China, many people know the place of Xinghuo, and they also know that there is a big company called Xinghuan trading there. Not only that, they also know that the boss is Chinese, and they also know that this magical boss is the major shareholder of Future Group. Because they are all Chinese, the boss is very caring towards Chinese. As long as they work in the company for a year and have no criminal record, even illiterate people like them can get an immigration passport. Of course, because they are illiterate, after getting the immigration passport, they will be arranged to enter the community college of Anger Island, where they will receive 6 months of literacy education. Although it is literacy, it is actually just learning mathematics and English. Compared with other developing countries, the education penetration rate in China is already very high. Even illiterate people can read. If they are illiterate, they can't understand the recruitment information. Education in Xinghuo is a welfare, not an industry, which is exactly the opposite of their hometown. And these workers are also happy to learn. It is said that knowledge changes destiny, right? You say, aren't those iron lumps hot wearing such thick clothes? He Dong walked to the side, took out 2 cigarettes, handed one to Qiangzi, and lit one himself. The mechanical exoskeleton is mainly made of aluminum and polyethylene. Except for a few important parts, protected by C-shaped steel, there is almost no iron. However, the black metallic luster on the polyethylene bulletproof plate always makes people who don't know the business mistakenly think that it is an iron lump. Zhao Qiang smiled woodenly and took the cigarette from He Dong. I don't know, maybe they are not afraid of heat. He Dong laughed. holding a cigarette in his mouth, looking at the two soldiers standing like wooden stakes at the door of the captain's room, and smacked his lips. It's summer all year round in the new country. I'm afraid there will be no chance to see snow in the future. Aren't you going home for the new year? Zhao Qiang asked doubtfully. He glanced at him and blew a few smoke rings from his nose. Why go home? Why not just move your family here? Move your family here? What else? We all came late. My brother and his group were the first to come here to work. They work in the Phantom Helmet factory. It is said that he worked there for half a year, and the bonus alone was enough to buy a house. He glanced at the ignorant Zhao Qiang. Among all the workers, he has a wide range of connections in Singapore. In the middle of 2016, his brother came to Singapore with the first wave of immigration. After several twists and turns, he was arranged to work in the Phantom Helmet factory to produce virtual reality stuff. As the factory grew bigger, his brother became a team leader, leading a team of 10 people to polish helmet parts. It is said that he is ready to resign now. After collecting enough money, he plans to get orders for the production of helmet shells with the help of his connections in the factory. Many small enterprises in Singapore have made a fortune by orders for plastic shells of Phantom helmets. With some spare money in hand, he also plans to give it a try. A house that would cost more than 1 million yuan, Zhao Qiang said blankly. Although his current basic salary is about 8,000 to 9,000 yuan, and his company provides food and accommodation, saving more than 1 million yuan to buy a house seems to be a very distant thing. As if he saw the encouragement in his friend's heart, he laughed and patted him on the shoulder. Don't think it's too difficult to buy a house. There are no black-hearted developers in Xingo, and the Future Group doesn't care about the money in real estate. More than 1 million yuan? If you want to live in a villa with a yard, just ignore what I said. But if you want an apartment building with the starring trade logo, at most 200,000 yuan will be enough. US dollars? Renminbi. In US dollars, about 30,000 US dollars? I'm not good at math. Zhao Qiang's face was immediately filled with joy when he heard his friend's words. Including the subsidy for going overseas, he can get a salary of 2,000 US dollars a month. If he saves 30,000 US dollars, he can get it in a year and a half. But Xinghuan Trading's welfare housing is limited to 1 unit per person, and the area is only about 80 to 90 square meters. People still have to have some aspirations. How happy it would be to save 1 million yuan and buy a sea view villa to live in. He said with a smile. He has only recently had this aspiration. When he was working in Wanghai City, he worked very hard for more than 2 years, and he never expected to buy a home in Wanghai City. Later, he accidentally heard his family mention working overseas, and he knew that Singapore was short of workers. With the mentality of giving it a try, he followed his brother's path and ran here. After this, he didn't want to go back. Here, he saw the hope of buying a house. For most Chinese people, isn't this life just for a house and a warm home? Why are you fussing about nothing? Hurry up and finish the work. A big shot will come to inspect soon. If you slack off, I'll deduct your bonus. He operated the robotic arm and threw the container into the sea. The foreman, with a cigarette in his mouth, glanced over and yelled. Seeing that the foreman was dissatisfied, he quickly put out the cigarette butt and pulled Qiangzi back to his post. The boxes were moved, but it seemed that there was other work to be done. As for the big shot mentioned by the foreman, it was not something that these little people cared about. After unloading all the goods, they rotated and separated from the engineering ship and returned to the direction of Anger Island. At the same time, a helicopter drove towards the engineering ship. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614, Unveiling the Veil of the Seabed. The helicopter landed on the temporary landing pad of the engineering ship. Accompanied by Aisha, Jiang Chen, who was wearing casual clothes, jumped onto the deck. The captain of the engineering ship had been waiting for a long time. When he saw Jiang Chen, the captain Chen Anmin, whose face was tanned, immediately came forward with a smile. Welcome, welcome. President Jiang actually came to give us instructions in person. Our ship is really honored. Jiang Chen almost laughed out loud when he heard the welcome speech of the black-faced captain. This guy used idioms without considering the context. Don't be so nervous. I just came here to see the progress of the project. By the way, I brought people to visit our group's century project. Chen Anmin was stunned for a moment, looking at the boss in confusion, and then looked at the white man who was getting off the plane. In his impression, the project of this maritime city should be kept secret from the outside world. Even the ordinary workers working on the ship, few people knew the specific content of the project. Only a few engineers who did not change shifts and were stationed on the ship knew a little bit of details. In 2 days, the information about the project will be fully released, and the people of the world have the right to know what we are doing in the Western Pacific. Jiang Chen spread his hands and said in a teasing tone, "There are always some cowards who think we are building missile silos. The graphene cable has been developed, and the main project undertaken by the amphibious engineering robot has been completed to 20%. The Philippines, which has been beaten half to death, keeps hyping up the conspiracy of starring trade in the Western Pacific, slandering it for building intercontinental missile silos on a large scale." Jiang Chen knew who was behind the scenes. Intercontinental missiles have a minimum strike radius, so it is impossible to use them to attack neighboring countries that are only a few hundred kilometers away. The one who is really afraid of the missile silos is probably the master behind the Philippines, the United States. It is not a good idea to keep it secret, so Jiang Chen simply announced the plan for the Sea City. Once this news was announced, it attracted the attention of countries around the world. The United States was the first to jump out and express doubts about it, believing that the images released by the Future Group were fictitious. A 5 square kilometer sea city? How is this possible? Currently, the United States is building a sea city in the Pacific Ocean not far from Hawaii. But it is called a city, but it is actually a reinforced concrete floating ship 70 meters high and 27 meters in diameter. However, it is already very difficult to achieve this level. This is not near the coast, but in the Pacific Ocean. It is not about blowing sand and filling reefs, but building a floating, movable city. Ordinary steel is not enough to resist the huge tidal force. Even using titanium alloy is difficult. Build a real sea city? This is not a science fiction movie. Knowing that the United States does not believe it, Jiang Chen is too lazy to make any explanation. Don't believe it? Why don't you send someone to take a look? Anyway, in a dozen minutes, the Future Group will push an advertisement to the world through the Phantom Helmet platform. An absolutely shocking advertisement with the theme of immigration and tourism. We can tell if it's a missile silo by looking at it. After getting off the helicopter, the white man straightened his messy tie and walked to Jiang Chen's side. "Where is the submersible? I think we can start." "You are still as impatient as ever, Mr. Lawrence," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "Speaking of which, I'm curious. I heard from Roberts that you were transferred to Los Angeles to do office work. There are not enough people, so I was transferred to the field again," Lawrence said impatiently. Because Jiang Chen had a bad impression of the CIA, considering the diplomatic relations with Singapore, the United States did not send CIA personnel, but sent an FBI agent who was mainly responsible for domestic intelligence work and 2 experts. As soon as the FBI agent got off the plane in Coral Island, Jiang Chen unexpectedly found that the person who came was actually an acquaintance. This impressive hooked nose still looks so aggressive, but this time when they met, the agent lost the sharpness he had in Iraq, and he also had a beer belly. "It seems that you want to go back to Los Angeles as soon as possible, so let's get started." Jiang Chen looked at the captain and said, "Get the submersible ready." Chen Anmin nodded hurriedly, looked at the 3 Americans with some caution, and turned back to the cabin. "Aisha, wait for me on the deck." "Yes." Aisha nodded and stood aside. Lawrence looked at the little girl wearing sunglasses. He felt that she looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen her. He faintly sensed a hint of danger from her. He hadn't smelled a similar smell for a long time, since leaving that hellhole in Iraq. Following Jiang Chen to the back of the deck, the cylindrical submersible was ready. Because he was taking outsiders on a tour, Jiang Chen naturally couldn't use a high-end product like the water drop. What's more, The depth of the construction area was only about 500 meters, and ordinary work submersibles were fully capable of diving operations. Do you have a deep sea diving suit? Maybe we have to leave the submersible to observe later. An American expert asked Jiang Chen. Of course, but you probably won't need them. Our project is spectacular, and you can see it clearly from outside. Jiang Chen said with a smile. That's not necessarily true. Lawrence snorted. Who knows if you are not secretly laying missile silos under a cover? When we first started building the missile silos, did you know? Jiang Chen said in surprise. Lawrence was stunned, not understanding what Jiang Chen wanted to express. Mr. Lawrence, what I'm going to say next is not only to you, but also to the government behind you. Stopping his steps, Jiang Chen looked back into his eyes and continued, we are fully capable of planting missiles in any corner of the sea without your knowledge, and we are also capable of carrying out long-range strikes on any target in your homeland without your knowledge. We are not North Korea or Iran, so please don't use the same tactics against them on me, otherwise, you and I will regret it. Remember what I said, it's not for you. Lawrence held his breath and stared blankly at Jiang Chen, who stepped into the submersible. What are you waiting for? Aren't you coming up? Coming back to his senses, Lawrence hid his anger behind his poker face, snorted, and called the two experts next to him to board the submersible. The veil buried under the Western Pacific Ocean will soon be unveiled by him. This mysterious project that has made the White House and the Pentagon sleepless. Is it a missile silo or an unrealistic city on the sea? Chapter 615, a project that shocked the world. This mysterious project that has made the White House and the Pentagon sleepless is actually real. No, it's not a missile silo, but Lawrence widened his eyes and stared blankly at the view through the glass window. It was a circle. Looking down from above, it was a circle with a diameter of more than 2 kilometers, surrounded by thick cylinders. The light of the searchlight was like neon on the stage, lighting up this huge and great project. Colorful schools of fish shuttled between the rings, like a buried steel city. Cylindrical machines, amphibious engineering robots, worked around the ring, carrying out the construction process in an orderly manner. Not far away, from time to time, materials were thrown into the water from engineering ships or ships with ears, picked up by some robots, and transported to the circular submarine construction site. It was incredible. Lawrence opened and closed his mouth, and forgot to speak for a while. The ring is the foundation of the entire city, as you can see. The helium chamber, power room, and some basic living spaces are all inside the outer circle of the ring. Jiang Chen smiled as he looked at Lawrence, who was stunned beside him. Wait, isn't the image you released a city on the sea? Why are these things on the seabed? Lawrence suddenly reacted and asked Jiang Chen. Once the construction is completed, we will inflate the helium chamber and the entire ring will float up. This is ridiculous. The American expert shook his head. Have your designers considered tidal forces? It is no exaggeration to say that once this ring floats to a position close to the sea level, it will be dismembered into pieces in less than 5 minutes. If the situation is serious, it may even cause an ecological crisis in the Western Pacific. There is also the climate factor. The Western Pacific is a place where typhoons frequently occur. Even if God blesses your ship from being broken into pieces by the waves, a gust of wind will turn your ring into a hula hoop. Another expert said in a sarcastic tone. Ha ha ha, you guys are really humorous. Jiang Chen laughed nonchalantly. We are discussing a very serious issue. Lawrence squinted at Jiang Chen. Although we haven't found any targets suspected of missile silos yet, as our experts said, your plan is a failure from beginning to end. What does my failure have to do with you? Jiang Chen glanced at Lawrence and grinned. When did the White House start to worry about the climate and environment like those saints in Europe? Lawrence's tone stagnated. His mouth opened and closed, and finally closed again. Since you have already seen it, it is obvious that we don't have missile silos deployed on the seabed, so can you please go back? Jiang Chen clapped his hands and said, no. The American expert next to him suddenly said, and looked at another expert next to him, and then continued, we have only seen the overall picture of the project, and have not checked the details yet. reading the hidden meaning in his colleague's eyes. Another expert also looked over sinisterly and echoed, "That's right. Just from the external structure of this ring, no one can prove whether this is a cover for the missile silo. We need to conduct further inspections on this ring." Although they did not believe that this ring could really resist tidal forces, they were still curious about the project of Future Group. This is a project costing tens of billions. As long as Jiang Chen is not stupid, his designers will not fail to consider the issue of material strength. They are curious about what technology Future Group has mastered to be so confident in this fantastic project. Even if they believe it, no one would be stupid enough to spend 10 billion to build an inexplicable submarine project specifically to cover the construction of missile silos. As Jiang Chen said, since they have the ability to complete the deployment of missile silos on the seabed without anyone noticing, there is no need to do this. Lawrence glanced at the technician behind him, then looked at Jiang Chen. "We need to go in and take a look." Lawrence originally thought that Jiang Chen would stop them, but he didn't expect Jiang Chen to smile and say, "Of course, you can live in it." "Live in it?" Lawrence frowned slightly. "Can people live in it?" "Of course not." Jiang Chen coughed lightly and raised his watch. "Just 5 minutes ago, the program of the Phantom Helmet has been updated. In the menu interface where the user enters a buffer space, we inserted a small advertisement bar. You just need to click in, and you can see everything in the circle below." As usual, Wei Wendong put on the helmet and dived into the world of virtual reality. Standing in the blank buffer space, he skillfully called up the menu, but found that there was a very unique advertisement bar under the game. "Penglai City Plan. Penglai City? The system has been updated. Just an advertisement bar has been updated." After a few underestimates, with curiosity about the Future Group, Wei Wendong raised his finger and poked the icon. Just like when logging into the game, the white cube room shattered into stardust, spreading out a gorgeous picture. The sound of the sea tide rang in my ears, and the sea breeze blowing in my face was refreshing. Wei Wendong stared around blankly, looking at his feet. At this moment, he was standing on the edge of this circular artificial floating island. In the center of the island was a tall tower surrounded by angular buildings. Interlaced roads spread across the center of the circular island. Small vehicles traveled on the roads. Digital holographic images flashed on the billboards on the street. Large and small sailboats and cruise ships circled around the island, and huge screens were embedded in the four walls of the central tower, just like New York's Times Square. Artificial beaches, cinemas, 5-star hotels, residential areas, opera houses. This place combines luxury and comfort, the leisure of a resort and the fast pace of a bustling city. The waves beat against the edge of the ring, but he could not feel the slightest fluctuation of his center of gravity standing here. The sea breeze blew on his face, but it could not soothe the waves in his heart. He even forgot about the dungeon that was about to be opened. No mistake, this is the sea city that Future Group recently promoted on its software. But this is not a floating island. It is clearly a huge city rooted in the seabed. "Welcome to Penglai City. I'm your guide, Xiao." A thumb-sized mermaid appeared beside him, flying around in the air, and stopped in front of him. "Xiao, excuse me, where is this?" Wei Wendong looked around in a daze. Xiao stopped dancing in the air, smiled sweetly at him, and said, "As you can see, this is Penglai City. I'm really sorry, I can't update 5 times today, and only updated 4 times. There was something at home yesterday, and I have to catch the train back to school at 9 o'clock today. The one I owe can only be made up tomorrow. In addition, at the request of some book friends, let's hold a vote to choose the personalities of the heroines in the book. Since Aisha is the most popular, let's start with her. Choose the Aisha in your mind. Search for the WeChat public account lines, and you can vote after 12 o'clock. In addition, rolling on the ground to ask for votes. There will be double at the beginning of the month. Vote quickly. Chapter 616. Penglai City News. Following the Small Mermaid guide, Wei Wendong glanced at the clock on the screen of the central tower. 12:10. After hesitating for a moment, he called up the menu and prepared to send a text message to several teammates who were scheduled to open the dungeon, asking them to wait a while before starting the dungeon. However, when he opened the friend list, he found that several professional players from the Royal Guild had already sent him a message. Captain, can the dungeon be delayed by 10 minutes? The system of this helmet has just been updated. I'll think about it first. Laoing, I'm going to wait for a long time. Wait for me, just 5 minutes. Captain, did you see the advertisement pushed by Future Technology? Is this really an advertisement? Isn't it a new game they made? Welly Wendong smiled bitterly. These guys are about to open the legendary dungeon. Why did they all fail at the critical moment? But then his face turned red. He was just about to send them a message to postpone the opening time, but what he said didn't seem convincing. After hesitating for a moment, he edited a group text message and sent it to all the teammates who participated in the group, delaying the opening of the dungeon by half an hour. The reason read, some teammates cannot reach the dungeon due to practical reasons, and the opening time is delayed by half an hour. Ding, the message was sent successfully. Just when he was about to close the system menu, he saw an avatar in the friend column jump up. Welly Wendong opened it and saw that it was a communication request from Lao Yu. This person was a friend he met in the game, and his profession was summoner. Because they were quite interested, the two met offline several times and became friends in real life. Later, he was also pulled into the Royal Guild. However, Hui was just a casual player. In reality, he was the boss of a company. Apart from having better equipment, his level and skills were just so-so. Lao Wei, what do you think? Hui said immediately as the voice communication was connected. What else can I say? Welly Wendong rolled his eyes and smiled. I'm used to the black technology of Future Group. Although he said it calmly, he was actually surprised in his heart. I heard that there are pre-sale properties here. Don't you want to take a look? I can't afford it. A house here will probably cost tens of millions. I'm just curious and walk around. I might come here to travel in the future. Hey? That doesn't sound like Welly Qianwen from our guild said that. Hui joked. This 10 million yuan is at most your half-year salary. The news that the boss of the royal family spent a huge sum of 20 million to sign Shadow Fiend is no longer a big news in their professional circle. At first, they thought the boss's investment was not worth it. After all, spending 20 million was too much. Later, they had to admire that the boss was still far-sighted. This is a world-class online game. The number of active players worldwide exceeds 100 million. In just half a year, Shadow Fiend has won no less than 30 million profits for the royal family in the game with his extraordinary game awareness and experience accumulated in internal testing. Apart from other things, in the highly anticipated non-level PvP competition every month, the top 10 players can have famous guilds and sponsors behind their IDs. This advertising space can even influence the stock price of listed companies to a certain extent. In this information age, if it is well operated, the IP itself is money. Of course, these are all off topic. Come on, you have a lot of money from business, so it's better to buy a house here with that spare money. Look at me, I can only play games, and I will beg for food if I really go abroad. Xinjiao is not a foreign country. There are more and more Chinese people. Just think of it as going to Guangzhou. And playing games is not playing anywhere. I'm going to buy a house to try it out. Anyway, it says that I can get a refund at any time. Hui smiled. Think about it again. After ending the call, Wei Wendong began to seriously think about his friend's advice. But after thinking about it carefully, it was still a bit too hasty to make a decision so quickly. Buying a house involves a major life event involving starting a family, so you have to think carefully. Now his savings are enough to buy a small villa in the suburbs of Wanghai City and settling overseas. There is really no need. Although he also admitted that the futuristic style of this city was indeed quite attractive to young people like him. Following Xiaoyu through the main road, Wei Wendong looked around and felt a little overwhelmed. Just as the Future Group had advertised, the technology here was very advanced, but it was also because of this that the dazzling array of holographic images and buildings made him feel a little overwhelmed for a moment. As if seeing his hesitation, Xiaoyu flew to his ear and whispered, "Any tourist entering Penglai City can get a pair of digital glasses as a personal terminal. Because we are now in virtual reality, these glasses have been hidden by us. If necessary, you can call them up through the system menu." According to Xiaoyu's instructions, Wei Wendong selected the icon of the glasses from the menu. Light particles gathered in his hand, and a pair of glasses lay in his palm. He went on fiddled with the glasses in his hand, and then put them on the bridge of his nose. They were very light, and the lenses were very thin, and there was almost no feeling when wearing them. His sight was focused on the location on the map, and a surprising scene happened. Light blue light particles gathered under his feet to form a path, extending to the target he selected on the map. He stared blankly at the cursor on the ground, took off his glasses, and the cursor disappeared. He put them on again, and the cursor reappeared. Amazing. At this moment, a word emerged in his mind. Is this augmented reality? He remembered that the HoloLens glasses launched by Microsoft also had a similar function, but he didn't know whether it could achieve the level of future human technology and mark the path to the destination in three-dimensional space. That's right, Xiao said with a smile. Can I ask another question? Are you a human customer service? Xiao is AI. Xiao said with a smile, dragging her chin and wagging her tail in the air. As long as you put on our glasses, you can see your own Xiao. After a long silence, Wei Wendong sighed. Your boss is simply a genius. Virtual reality plus real estate and artificial intelligence that is more human than humans as a shopping guide. It's hard not to get rich. Thank you for the compliment. Xiao blinked and said playfully. After walking along several main roads for a few rounds, Wei Wendong stopped at the entrance of a community and looked at the apartment building. At the door, he saw a holographic panel with a row of green labels. For sale? He silently read the words on the holographic panel. Penglai City implements digital municipal management. Your local assets and properties are bound to your personal ID and can be managed through a special interface. For example, the holographic panel at the door of the apartment can be used to sell and buy real estate, and these sales information will also be synchronized in other areas. Xiao explained to him patiently. At this time, the green label jumped into orange, and the for sale label became bid 10,000. What is this? Because the property rights of the property now belong to the future group, the initial sale is conducted by bidding by default. A level 1 apartment like this is only about 80 square meters, and the starting price is only $10,000. Xiao explained. However, because there are so many houses, bidding will only occur if some people only want to live on a specific floor. Each increase in price must not be less than $1,000, and the transaction will be locked after 3 days. Only $10,000? He went on muttered to himself. Each user is only allowed to purchase 1 unit of level 1 to 2 units, and only units above level 3 are allowed to purchase multiple units, but there are certain restrictions. Xiao reminded. From the map, there are 200,000 level 1 units for sale, mainly distributed in the outer ring area. There are also level 2 units with slightly higher prices, and the location is closer to the middle of the ring. In general, the closer to the middle, the more expensive the house price, but there are exceptions. For example, the Seaview Villa on the outermost artificial beach is the highest level 5 unit, and the price is comparable to that of the central area. He went on then looked at the house prices in the giant tower area and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. The room at the top of the tower is priced at $1 billion, but it is a grey label, which seems to be not for sale. And the bottom of the tower? Yes, there is an underwater part at the bottom of the tower. The whole island is like a spinning top. And the room that goes deepest underwater is located at the tip of the entire spinning top. The spiral room is completely wrapped in seawater and is priced at $10 billion. It is still not for sale. No matter how you look at it, it seems to be a random price. It's not going to sell. He went on complained bitterly in his heart. What if the construction of this city fails in the end? I remember you are still working on the seabed. Future Group will refund the full amount. Xiao smiled. With Future Group's global industry and guarantee for all investors in the world, we can definitely afford it. With the financial resources of Future Group, there is really no need to worry about bankruptcy. He went on smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was actually worried about such a stupid question just now. Will anyone really settle here? Looking at Xiao, he asked the most critical question. If a city only has houses but no people, it can only be called a ghost town. from the perspective of the housing types that have been auctioned. 110,000 people have planned to settle here. According to the plan of Future Group, the development focus of this sea city is mainly on tourism and scientific research. After the completion of Penglay City, it will be moved to the sea area between Koro Island and Anger Island. Because there are convenient transport airships and ships, residents on the island can easily go to any island in the new country to work. After speaking, Xiao added a sentence. Just like taking a bus. Venice on the sea. Well, he went on, muttered to himself, and then looked around. The environment here is very beautiful. To be honest, he was really tempted. However, when he thought that, even if he lived in Wanghai City, it seemed that he could come here anytime, and anywhere through this helmet, his longing for Penglay City was reduced a little. But at this moment, he suddenly noticed the countdown in the lower right corner of the field of vision. What is this timer? Oh, this one. Xiao covered her mouth lightly and made an expression that she almost forgot something. This is the time the user can stay in this virtual reality. Stay time. Wait. That is to say, that's right. Xiao flew to the front of him and stopped, looking at him with a smile. The advertising time is only 30 minutes. Buying a house and applying for travel can all be done through the Phantom Helmet. If you want to see Xiao in the beautiful Penglay City, please look forward to its completion. Wow. Playing the limited time experience again. However, before when he went unfinished scolding, everything around him shattered like snowflakes. In 2 brief seconds, he returned to the pure white cube. Facing the empty virtual reality space, he remained speechless for a long time. Chapter 617, The Second Wave of Immigration. I just returned to school yesterday, and I was unexpectedly too busy. Today I can only update twice. I'm really sorry, but the number of words in these 2 updates is still quite enough. There will be 5 more updates in a few days, so I'll pay them back together then. Finally, there are only 3 days left for the double monthly votes. Brothers who have votes, please click to vote, and Chengxing will definitely reward you handsomely. The waters of the 8 strings and 9 fields, the flow of the Milky Way, all flow into it, without increasing or decreasing. Among them are 5 mountains. One is Daiyu, the second is Yuan Jiao, the third is Fanghu, the fourth is Yingzhou, and the fifth is Penglay. The word Penglay was first seen in Lizi, and later appeared in Shanhaijing, and appeared in classics such as Shiji and Heinei Shizaoji. In line with the idea of promoting Chinese traditional culture, this huge monster suspended in the sea was named Penglay by Jiang Chen. As for whether it will have the same name as a city in China, this is not within his consideration. When the virtual reality advertisement was pushed in the global Phantom Helmet system, the mysterious underwater project entered the public's eyes for the first time. The main structure of the entire island is a ring with an area of 5 square kilometers, just like a life buoy. Graphene ropes as thick as forearms are interlaced in the middle, just like the steel skeleton of a skyscraper, except that the middle is not poured with concrete, but a special foam aluminum with a lighter material, stronger ductility than graphene, but slightly less strength. Under the bearing capacity of graphene, even the huge tidal force cannot tear this fortress apart. The completed project, looking from a distance, looks like a gyroscope embedded in the sea. There are high towers built above the sea level, and the lower conical structure is immersed in the sea. This is also the most expensive place in the entire Penglay city. It is like an inverted pyramid. The closer to the top of the tower, the more expensive the land price. The positions of the upper and lower tower tips are not for sale, because they have long been designated by Jiang Chen as his own private land. The island is a 3-dimensional structure, and the 5 square kilometers of the island can accommodate a maximum of 1 million people. The unit population accommodation area can already be described as terrifying. There are connecting rings designed around it, and in the future, it can be connected to the main island by graphene pipelines through the construction of secondary islands. Previously, the commotion that Future Group had made on the seabed had accumulated enough hype for them. First, the Philippines hyped that it was deploying a large-scale missile silo cluster with the intention of threatening the peace of the entire world, and then the United States questioned, and the 5 permanent members of the United Nations interfered. When the media around the world turned their cameras to this calm sea, Future Group slowly unveiled this long-buried trump card and stood at the center of the public opinion storm. This is impossible. Don't think that those computer-made CG images can be fooled. The Pentagon will pay close attention to the situation in the Western Pacific. When the US spokesperson said this to the media reporters, Jiang Chen sent an invitation letter to the White House, inviting Ms. Hillary to visit the Target C area in person. Hillary was unable to attend the appointment because of her full schedule, but sent FBI agents in Los Angeles and US experts to investigate. While they brought back first-hand video materials, Future Group made the first updates to the system of the Phantom helmet. The voice communication function was added to the built-in chat software, and an advertisement space that would not affect the user's mood was implanted below the menu. The first round of ads was a virtual panorama of the concept of Penglai City, the city on the sea. Although the maximum experience limit was only half an hour, almost everyone's heart followed the clever mermaid guide and flew to the Western Pacific Ocean thousands or even tens of thousands of kilometers away. That sci-fi island, that dreamy city on the sea. Like a thunder, the Wall Street Journal was the first to exclaim, "Atlantis in the East. Future Group is creating miracles." Then came the Christian Monitor. "Incredible engineering. If they are not joking, then God is joking with us." However, in the face of this century-long project, doubts still exist. For the Future Group, which has repeatedly created miracles, the ignorant people who are jealous and contemptuous are still unwilling to accept its amazing technological strength. Sankei Shimbun, which has always been at odds with the Future Group, spoke out again, highly doubting the authenticity of this underwater city. As a Chinese company, Futureman Technology defeated Japanese companies in the fields of robots and artificial intelligence, which Japan is best at. This has always been regarded as a great shame by the right-wing forces in Japan. The right-wing forces that control the media discourse naturally spared no effort to slander Futureman Group. Undersea City? This is just a gimmick. Japanese material experts said that this illogical design is simply impossible to achieve with current materials. And it is extremely irresponsible to sell high-risk products to investors without finished products. The Japanese people will never pay for this stupid thing. However, what is embarrassing is that there are still many Japanese who paid to buy properties in Penglai City. Most of them have had enough of the congestion in Tokyo, the desperate unemployment rate, and the widely criticized Abe's money printing **** economics. Of course, the main source of immigrants is still China, and more than 50% of home buyers come from coastal areas of China. The turbulent Europe has lost its halo of high welfare, and North America, with its high threshold and low welfare, is too difficult. People with money or skills have set their sights on Singapore, whose economy is growing at an incredible speed. This small country in the Chinese cultural circle is evolving into the second Singapore. The most important thing is that houses here are cheap. $10,000 is not a small amount for most people, but if this $10,000 is equated with a house, most Chinese people will open their wallets for it. Why? Because many people work hard all their lives, and it is difficult to get a house in the city where they strive for, unless they don't eat or drink, or bear the mortgage for most of their lives. $10,000 is the price of a small car. Although the transaction price of many level 1 apartments has been bid to $50,000 or $60,000, it is still far lower than the housing prices in most cities in China. Out of trust in the products of Future Group, many people still have the mentality of giving it a try and took out the money. After all, Future Group has guaranteed that if the residents are not satisfied with the move-in, or Penglai City fails, it is willing to buy back the residents' properties at double the starting price of $20,000. This clause was written into the purchase agreement, with Future Group's assets in various countries as collateral and strictly supervised by the governments of various countries. The export-oriented economy means that Singapore does not need to rely on real estate and sacrifice the welfare of the people to boost domestic demand in the overall economy. Irreplaceable high-tech products make it impossible for Singapore's products to be rejected by the international market forever. The booming tourism industry has injected a lot of fresh blood into the local market. With such a unique advantage, Future Group does not need to sacrifice its nominal support rates to boost Singapore's economy. Wall Street analysts' valuation of Future Group has soared again. Many investors even went to Future Group's US branch in Los Angeles, waving bundles of banknotes in their hands, hoping to give money to Future Group. In response to media inquiries, Buffett reluctantly said that, if Future Group is willing to be listed on Nasdaq, the foundation he manages will consider appropriately increasing its holdings of its shares. When facing the media's questioning about his determination not to touch Nasdaq technology stocks, he could only helplessly tell the public, there are always exceptions. We always have to try new lives and accept new things, don't we? I heard that you need to immigrate. The Saudi prince seemed to like Jiang Chen, his oriental friend, very much, and always called him from time to time to greet him. The population problem is indeed a headache, Jiang Chen said with a smile. However, this problem will soon be solved. The hot pre-sales of houses will be realized as a visible population dividend after the completion of Penglai City. As long as the Future Group can absorb these laborers in time, they will create a value for the Future Group that is 10 times the cost of Penglai City. We have a group of homeless people here, why don't we send them to you? Naif said generously. Are you trying to trick me or help me? Jiang Chen said speechlessly. Infectious diseases, poverty, extreme beliefs, violence. These things are very common among refugees. Although the new country is short of people, it has not yet reached the point of starving to eat anything. Ha ha ha, my friend, how could I trick you? This is just a joke. Naif said with a smile. I heard that you are building a city in the Western Pacific? Yes, are you interested? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Very interested. We have a plan to build a new artificial island in Bay with a price tag of more than $20 billion US. Is your Future Group interested? Naif asked. No, we don't have any experience in overseas construction for the time being. It would be bad if we cheat you. Jiang Chen tactfully rejected his proposal. Jiang Chen knew that Naif wanted to repay his favor by proposing the bidding before seeing the finished project, but he didn't intend to use the favor here. Naif smiled and didn't mention it again. If the 5-level apartment in your sea city is open for sale, please let me know. As for the floating Penglai City on the sea, well, I'm still very interested. Naif was not very clear about the pronunciation of those two Chinese characters. Haha, definitely, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Currently, only the pre-sale of 1-level apartment and some commercial land is open. The former is mainly for overseas immigrants, and the latter is mainly for domestic citizens. Only when these natives get real benefits will they stand on the side of Future Group, maintain the building of Future Group piled with money, and willingly add bricks and tiles to this building. As for the units above level 3, they will be gradually opened. As for the highest level 5 units, they are naturally for the executives of Future Group and wealthy people from all over the world. Jiang Chen will naturally not refuse the Saudi Arabian customers who are stupid and rich. This submarine project is very expensive, and it is burning at a rate of 100 million per day. It is expected that by the end of the year, it will cost a total of $32 billion US, becoming the most expensive artificial floating island in the world. But at the same time, it is also the most cost-effective and technologically advanced artificial island. Chapter 618, Horrible Trading Volume. As of 2400 hours yesterday, all 200,000 level 1 apartments have been sold, with an average transaction price of $111,000 and a maximum transaction price of $300,000. When Zhao Xiao reported to Jiang Chen, although her expression was still serious, her voice was tinged with a little irresistible tremor. She really didn't expect that this project, which she thought would burn a lot of money, would be so profitable. The project has not seen the shadow of completion, but hundreds of billions of dollars have been received, and more than half of the project funds have been recovered. However, she also knew that the reason why it was sold at such a high price was, on the one hand, the media's excessive coverage of the city, and on the other hand, the terrifying promotion ability of the virtual reality platform. One gives Penglai City investment value, and the other gives Penglai City enough room for imagination. No matter how good the wine is, it is afraid that the alley is too deep, not to mention that this jar of wine has not been brewed yet. However, Jiang Chen, the chairman, seemed to be not very satisfied with the transaction price. It was actually hyped up to $300,000. This is almost catching up with the housing price level in China. Jiang Chen exclaimed. According to his plan, even the upcoming level 3 apartment will only have a starting price of $200,000. The enthusiasm of investors is simply unbelievable, but the housing prices are too high, which may not be a good thing in the long run. This is because we limit the purchase of each user's ID. If each user is not restricted to only one level 1-2 apartment, the average transaction price will probably double. Because of the purchase restriction policy, the appreciation potential of real estate has been reduced. Sun Jiao pushed her glasses and said, "What about level 2 apartments?" Nodding, Jiang Chen continued to ask. There are 100,000 level 2 apartments for sale, with a starting price of $50,000, an area of 110 to 120 square meters, and mainly for the middle class. Sun Jiao pushed her glasses and continued to report. All 100,000 level 2 apartments have been sold, with an average transaction price of $217,000 and a highest transaction price of $600,000. The average price per square meter is 10,850 yuan, which is crazy. Is this still the housing price in the new development zone? And the location of the level 2 apartment is not really downtown. In addition to the concepts of high-tech cities, scenic spots, and highly liberal laws, investors have not studied factors such as quality of life, transportation, education, and working environment. Although future people accepts refunds, the refunds are based on the starting price. In other words, if you spend $600,000 to buy a level 2 apartment, you can only get the starting price of $100,000 if you sell it back to future people group, unless you sell it to another investor who is willing to take over. A developer has applied to us for cooperation. They are willing to purchase 10,000 units of level 1 and 2 apartments from us at a unit price of $200,000 and $400,000, and guarantee that the value of the remaining houses in our hands will be hyped up to more than $300,000 and $600,000. As long as we nod and agree to relax the purchase restriction policy, allowing each person to own more than 3 units of level 1-2 apartments. Sun Jiao continued. The value created by a worker in his lifetime is far more than the income from a house. We are creating an inexhaustible gold mine. If we exchange this gold mine for cash early, it is really short-sighted. Jiang Chen sighed and said, when he built Penglai City, he never thought of speculating it as a commodity. Although he also admitted that it would be faster to make money by driving up the housing prices. But if he wanted money, wouldn't it be enough to just list the future group? That would make money faster. With the profitability of the future group, the market value could easily exceed hundreds of billions. Investors from Wall Street came to him more than once, and even flew to Koro Island to wait for Jiang Chen to get off work at the door of the future building. They tried to persuade him to list on Nasdaq. Everyone was optimistic that the market value of the future group would exceed $1 trillion. I think so too, so I have rejected them for you. Sun Jiao smiled. Since Jiang Chen insisted on not listing, she had already understood his development ideas. You still understand me? Looking at Sun Jiao, Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction. Ahem. Sun Jiao coughed lightly, looked aside somewhat embarrassedly, and changed the subject. On the other hand, regarding the issue of commercial land, currently, 95% of the merchants who have cooperative relations with us in the landmark building of the heart of the ocean have submitted applications to move into Penglai City. The business scope of these companies covers various fields such as accommodation, catering, shopping malls, and life. However, some companies proposed that the decoration should be handled by their own contacts because they have contracts with cooperative decoration companies. This is not possible. Jiang Chen shook his head. Penglai City's building materials mainly use foam, aluminum and graphene. Decoration and house reconstruction can only be completed by engineering robots. As for the contract, they can only negotiate it themselves. Sun Jiao nodded. Finally, in terms of education, we have sent invitations to a total of 12,300 senior teachers in more than 1,000 universities around the world. However, we did not receive a very positive response. They seem to be very cautious about teaching overseas. According to the construction plan of Penglai City, it is expected that 15 primary schools, 10 junior high schools, 8 high schools, and 1 university will be established in Penglai City, provide educational services for the entire new country. However, the lack of teaching staff is a very troublesome problem. It is easy to find teachers for primary and junior high schools, but it is a bit troublesome for high schools. As for university professors, only a few computer professors who study robots and artificial intelligence accepted the invitation without hesitation. Doctors and teachers, who are welfare-oriented professions, are much more cautious about immigration than other professions due to the influence of professional qualifications and language and cultural environment. We seem to have fallen into a misunderstanding, Jiang Chen suddenly said. Huh? Sun Jiao looked at him inquiringly. Since we have this thing called the Phantom Helmet, why do we have to build a school? Jiang Chen said. Sun Jiao's eyes lit up, but then her brows knitted again. I understand what you mean. It is theoretically feasible to replace the real classroom with a virtual reality classroom. But the significance of a school is not only to impart knowledge, but also a window for children to contact society. This is also the reason why online education cannot ultimately replace the real classroom. Jiang Chen shook his head and said, in a sense, this is correct. But in another sense, this is not correct. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued, since the name of our group is Future People, and we are collectively engaged in high technology, then the minds of us managers must also stand at the height of the new era. Can you put it in a more popular way? Sun Jiao said. The disadvantage of online classes is that they weaken children's social interaction. But if we completely restore everything that a real classroom should have in virtual reality, then is there any reason for the real classroom to exist? We can completely restore the real classroom, podium, blackboard, and desks in virtual reality, and our teachers and students can enter the classroom from any place. The helmet is the key. But this is too risky. Sun Jiao shook her head and said, we don't know the side effects of completely abolishing the classroom. And education is something that takes 5 or even 10 years to judge right or wrong. I know. Jiang Chen sighed. This is indeed a very risky choice. Because in the timeline of the end of the world, Pan-Asia Cooperation did not abolish physical classrooms until the 1970s before the station. In the virtual reality in the original shelter number 05, he had already experienced this. Even though technology is extremely advanced, the people of Pan-Asia Cooperation have made a great degree of reservations in their daily lives. For example, although they can quickly master a skill through the virtual reality learning system, they prohibit students below high school from using this crash learning system. They believe that forcing a person to grow too fast will overdraw his potential, and that indoctrination-style education will make people become skilled senior engineers, but it will not cultivate scientists who can develop new technologies. Scientific thinking can only be obtained through exploration, and exploration can only be experienced in the process of learning. Unconsciously, Jiang Chen found that he had become a person who could influence the direction of civilization. The 22nd century is a mirror. He is fortunate to be able to see the other side, but there is no need to follow the old path that has been taken there. Taking a deep breath, he restrained the inexplicable surge in his heart and spoke out his decision in a deep voice. The original plan to build primary, middle and high schools will be cancelled, and the target building blocks will be converted into residential plazas, gymnasiums and other facilities, with Penglai City being used as a pilot for virtual reality of basic education. People of school age within Penglai City will receive primary, middle and high school education through the student version of the Phantom Helmet. Teachers do not need to immigrate to the new country. They can teach at any location and receive an agreed salary through online recruitment through the Penglai Municipal Department of Education. The teaching content will be reviewed by both humans and artificial intelligence. If the content is found to be unqualified, the teacher's points will be deducted, and if the points are cleared, the teacher's qualification will be revoked. In addition, student performance assessments will be conducted in offline examination rooms and recorded in personal files. The class division procedure is based on the student's race and ancestral origin, and the basic knowledge will be taught by teachers with the same mother tongue. All students must master the official language, Chinese, and one other language. according to the wishes of the students and their parents. A small number of international classes and crash courses may be considered for special education. All virtual classrooms for primary, middle and high schools will also set up social practice subjects, which will be conducted in public facilities such as gymnasiums and plazas. Only when the credits are full can the semester be completed. The virtual classroom program and the virtual social program will be developed by Futureman Technology. The university will still retain the real teaching model. For now, that's all. Using virtual reality teaching, but not using a crash course teaching system, but simulating traditional classrooms. This can also be considered an attempt to be different from that world. Chapter 619. It's time. The topic of Penglai City continues to ferment in major media and online platforms around the world, and the most direct impact on the new country is probably the surge in passenger traffic. From 200,000 monthly visits at the beginning of the year to 410,000 visits in June this year, the number of visits has increased by 205%. This can be said to be very happy for Wendy Yun, the CEO of Future Travel. According to this passenger flow growth trend, it is not a problem for the annual financial report of Ocean Heart to exceed the $200 million he promised to Jiang Chen. The remaining 200,000 square meters of business area were snatched up by major international merchants, and the merchants who have already moved in are secretly glad that they started early and copied the bottom when there were few tourists on Coral Island. Otherwise, they would have to fight for those few square meters of space like their peers. The huge passenger flow makes this luxurious coastal landmark building overcrowded, but people still enjoy the luxury and comfort here. Not only the heart of the ocean, people are also full of strong interest in the beaches of Coral Island, the narrow coastal sandbars, and the sea mazes lined up one after another. Visitors have uploaded vacation photos and expressed their feelings about the trip on their favorite social media. For example, moments. This place is no different from a hometown. It's just that the air is a little fresher, the environment is a little more beautiful, the roads are a little wider, the internet speed is a little faster, and the housing prices are a little more incredible. The official language here seems to be Chinese, and I always feel like I'm in Hawaii, China. Another example is a tweet. There is permanent free Wi-Fi covering the entire territory. Oh, God, this is simply a paradise for Americans. Hillary should really learn from Jiang Chen, and Michigan should also cover the entire territory with free Wi-Fi. Doesn't she know that Americans will die without Wi-Fi? Or a Facebook post. It's so hot. It's much hotter here than Moscow. I have to drink champagne all day to cool down. Burp. I really just want to cool down. I'm not drunk. Can't you have some? It is said that these are all made from tropical fruits, which is really addictive. Of course, people are most interested in the legendary Penglai City. Is the city under construction really as magical as the Future Group said? Sensing business opportunities from people's curiosity, many smart travel agencies have started diving projects near the Western Pacific. The theme of diving is exploring the mysterious Penglai City. Although the construction site is not open to outsiders, because it is a military stronghold, Starring Trade did not drive away the civilian ships cruising outside the restricted area. This is Jiang Chen's decision. There must be many people who are curious or suspicious about the mysterious Penglai City. If the curiosity of these tourists is satisfied, and their suspicion that the Future Group is hyping is resolved, they will definitely pass this information back to their respective countries, and become firm supporters of the legend of Penglai City. If Starring Trade prevents these tourists from watching, it may dampen their enthusiasm for tourism. And the new country needs these tourists. What's more, ordinary diving equipment cannot dive to a depth of 500 meters, so there is no need to worry about these tourists interfering with construction. But if they get close to the material delivery area, or try to enter directly above the construction site, the submersible of Starring Trade will still drive them away, in the name of safety hazards. Later, because there were too many tourists, the soldiers were too busy, so Ivan had to report the situation to Jiang Chen. That's easy. After listening to Ivan's report, Jiang Chen immediately summoned all the travel agencies that had cooperation with the new country and held a simple meeting with them. It is okay to visit the Penglai City project, but you can only visit it from the outside. If a traveler under the name of a travel agency is caught entering the forbidden area without permission, the traveler will not be punished, but the travel agency will be recorded. After 3 records, the travel agency will be included in the blacklist of future travel. Being blacklisted by future travel basically means that you can no longer make a living from tourism in the new country. As soon as the meeting was over, the bosses of these travel agencies immediately returned to the company to hold an internal meeting. From now on, a rope will be tied to the diving equipment of all Penglai City visiting ships. Although this rope is widely criticized by freediving enthusiasts, it is strictly enforced by all travel agencies. The reason is simple: no one wants to offend the giant future group. Time soon came to mid-June. With the arrival of summer, the tourism industry has also ushered in a wave of peaks. What's more exciting is that on the official website of Future Travel, the first level 4 apartment has finally been put up for auction. It is a 3-story sea view villa located on the beach, located in the outermost ring of Penglai City. It is equipped with a private garage, a swimming pool, and a private berth that can accommodate a small speedboat. The starting price is $5 million. The housing prices in Penglai City have been hyped up to sky-high prices, and the terrifying appreciation rate has made those who missed the first few days jealous. This time, almost no one is willing to miss the rush to buy this property. Under the deliberate operation of Future Travel, this villa, which is not the most luxurious, was sold at a terrifying high price of $70 million. There is no purchase limit for apartments above level 3, and its investment value makes all investors interested in Penglai City salivate. Together with the 1-2 level apartments sold some time ago, as well as the commercial spaces sold, a total of $61.7 billion in one-time income has been brought to the future group. In Jiang Chen's words, it's like robbing money. The capital chain tension caused by the construction of the SYNOPSIS special zone in the Penglai City project was quickly alleviated by the injection of this batch of funds. While the pre-sale of real estate in Penglai City created a profit miracle, Jiang of future heavy industry was not far behind. With the completion of the SYNOPSIS special zone, Jiang's monthly shipments have exceeded 500,000, and the monthly net profit has also exceeded the $1 billion mark. It has completely occupied half of the world's 2 major markets for household robots and adult products. In the spirit of striking, while the iron is hot, future heavy industry announced in front of the media that the next step will be to cooperate with Future N Biology, a subsidiary of the group, to jointly develop medical robots and invite outpatient doctors into everyone's home. Phantom helmets, domestic robots, pure electric vehicles with long battery life. Many people have already smelled the breath of the future in their daily lives. While enjoying this sense of progress that is changing with each passing day, everyone can't help but guess in their hearts, what will Future Human Group change next? Let's turn our attention back to Future Human Biology, which has already entered the medical industry. The T-virus vaccine has been sold to 11 countries around the world. Although people's panic has subsided, the 200,000 vaccines per month are still in short supply. The entire vaccine market is divided by Future Human Biology and Tequila Pharmaceutical. More than 5 months have passed, and many other pharmaceutical companies have also developed similar antiviral drugs. There are even companies that claim that they have mastered the technology to treat zombies and turn them back into humans, but now there are no zombies to prove their technology. Jiang Chen sneered at this. Even in the end of the world, there is no technology to resurrect the dead, let alone these pharmaceutical companies in reality. Zombies are dead things. The moment the immune system is destroyed by the T-virus, the infected host is already dead. Those who say they can resurrect zombies are just playing a gimmick. The Black Ship organization, which has not surfaced for a long time, seems to have gone dormant. The ghost agents stationed in Tokyo did not find any traces of the Black Ship organization, but they did provide an interesting piece of information. The CIA has contacted the Japanese government and is currently investigating Tequila Pharmaceutical. At the same time, the CIA agents searching for F-35 pilots in Mindanao have also been gradually withdrawn. The Americans seem to have noticed something. Jiang Chen is not sure whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, and he does not have the energy to figure it out for the time being. He has focused his development on the present world for too long. According to Sun Jiao, the end of the world has almost rested, and if it continues to rest, the muzzles of the soldiers' guns will rust. It's time to start expanding. It's time to vote for the monthly ticket in your hand. Chapter 620. Why do I feel so secretly happy? The TV in the dining room was playing the news. He had developed this habit since coming to Koro Island. Every day, he would turn on the TV to watch news from various countries during his breakfast break. Recently, he could always see the name of Future Group in the news. We welcome the Singaporean Maritime City Plan. The people of the two countries are connected by blood and have an inseparable friendship in culture. Penglay City will serve as a link for economic and cultural exchanges between the two countries. We hope that the two countries will develop peacefully, implement, grasp, deepen, continue, and realize the eternal friendship between the two countries. He turned off the news broadcast and stuffed the last piece of fried egg into his mouth. Jiang Chen went back to his room, changed his clothes, and then got up and walked out. He didn't have to go to work today. To be precise, he would not go to work in the next few months. The things in the present world have been dealt with. The construction of the Singapore-Malaysia Special Zone has been put on the right track. The mineral development cooperation with Moro is also under the responsibility of Future Mining. A triangular industrial chain has been formed between Angger Island, Mindanao Island, and Papua Island. All the matters that require Jiang Chen to make decisions have been dealt with. After almost a year of rest, the end of the world is almost ready. It's time to free up hands and start expanding the territory of NAC. When he walked to the gate of the courtyard, his modified Lamborghini was already waiting at the gate. Sitting in the driver's seat was Aisha, who was dressed in a suit and sunglasses, exuding a bit of cool taste. After Jiang Chen got in the car, Aisha started the car skillfully. Where are you going? Underground warehouse. Delivering supplies there? Well, it may take a little longer to go there this time. I'll leave things here to you. Taking off her sunglasses with green fingers, Aisha turned her face to the side, responded to Jiang Chen's entrustment with a serious look, and nodded. Don't worry. When Jiang Chen traveled to the end of the world, only Aisha could contact him in this world. If there was something important in the Future Group that he had to make a decision on, Sun Jiao would first tell Aisha, and then pass the information to Jiang Chen through Aisha. Jiang Chen trusted Aisha, and she never let him down. Soon, the car drove onto the ferry at the port, and arrived at Angger Island. After driving along the road for more than 10 kilometers, the Lamborghini stopped in a secluded suburb. Next to Angger Mountain in the center of Angger Island, there is a small military checkpoint. Behind this military checkpoint is an empty cave. After being transformed by engineering robots, it has several floors of more than 10,000 square meters of internal space. Originally, this place was used to store BM-21 rockets purchased from Russia. Later, because the development of Fireball 1 was completed, this secret warehouse was temporarily abandoned. Later, because the new country gradually stood in the field of vision of the international media, the United States and other countries strengthened their intelligence on the new country. In order to avoid leaks, the original warehouses next to the southern port were naturally useless. As a result, this warehouse was officially renamed the New Country National Strategic Material Reserve Center and became a new material transfer station between the two worlds. Every week, food and mineral materials are transported to this cave for storage. Occasionally, mechanical exoskeletons, power armor or Type 50 electromagnetic guns sealed in containers are transported out and escorted to New Moon Island. Except for the 4-starring trade soldiers stationed at the door and Jiang Chen who comes regularly, no one is allowed to approach the entire checkpoint. And the cave is a forbidden area among forbidden areas. 5 reptile robots and 10 VIP drones guard it and will attack any unidentified units that try to break in. The transportation of materials is carried out by engineering robots, and the confidentiality level has reached the highest level. With the mountain as a cover, even if the United States uses spy satellites to observe, it cannot spy on it. American experts suspect that this is a secret military factory of new ring trade. After all, there are always living materials and resources transported in, and military equipment transported out. However, the CIA agents are also at a loss as to the specific situation inside the mountain. It is impossible to get in with such a tight control. Aisha stayed outside the door, and Jiang Chen walked into the warehouse alone. After delivering the things, he had to go back to the villa. He still hoped to set the crossing point at home, not this desolate cave. Looking at the full warehouse of supplies, Jiang Chen picked up the list of supplies attached to the engineering robot and simply browsed it. 800 tons of grains, 400 tons of vegetables that are easy to store, 300 tons of dairy products, 200 tons of canned food, 100 tons of pickled products, and fresh meat that filled more than a dozen cold storages, and some snacks. For some reason, the sales of spicy strips in the wasteland are abnormally high. This evil food made of additives and gluten has long been extinct in the 22nd century, but it was fished out of the dust of history by Jiang Chen, a time traveler. Of course, these are all off topic. Facing the piles of supplies, Jiang Chen sighed and put on the watch designed for him by Lin. When the Garden of Eden is completed, he, the marshal of a faction, will no longer have to be a farm porter. The supplies transported from the present world are still piled up in the backyard of the villa. The Nack's top and bottom levels were used to the fact that their marshal could bring in supplies from outside without anyone noticing. It wasn't that no one was curious, but no one dared to inquire, fearing that they would know secrets that they shouldn't know and be silenced by the guards. After stuffing the list of supplies to Wanking, Jiang Chen returned to the bedroom and traveled back to the real world again. After returning to his home in the real world, he lay down on the bed in the bedroom, adjusted the save point, and started traveling again. As soon as he returned to the wasteland, before Jiang Chen could stand firmly, he was bitten wildly by Sun Jiao, who rushed over and hugged him. Feeling the heat pressing on his chest and the face, so close to him, Jiang Chen's heart couldn't help but ripple slightly, and his breathing gradually became rapid. If there were no one standing next to him, he really had the urge to execute this girl right now. Sister, I miss you so much. After all, you haven't lived here for a long time. I was thinking, what if he doesn't want to come back? Is he unhappy because he hasn't eaten the small animals at home? At night, he would say strange things in his sleep, such as don't leave, wearing a lavender dress. Sun Jiao put her hands behind her back, with a very pure smile on her face. Stop, shut up, idiot. Sun Jiao turned back and glared at her sister angrily, but the response she got was just her sister's innocent eyes. In terms of being treacherous, the two sisters are really similar. Sorry. Holding her slender and toned waist, Jiang Chen said to the beauty in his arms with a little apology. Although he often came here in the past 6 months, had dinner with the girls, was affectionate with Sun Jiao and Xiao, inspected the work of Nack, reviewed the training of the 3 major corps, and took away high-tech products. However, as Sun Jiao said, he hasn't lived here for a long time. After all, the focus of his development has always been on the present world. The political crisis in Mindanao took up too much of his energy. In the confrontation with the United States, he almost bet all his chips on the negotiation table. Later, the quantum satellite, robot, and Penglai city plan also kept him busy. I don't want to hear your apology. Hanging on Jiang Chen's neck, Sun Jiao stared into his eyes. Yes. Kissing her lips lightly, Jiang Chen felt her softening love. After a long time, the lips parted. Sun Jiao shrank in front of Jiang Chen's chest, and her eyes glanced at her sister behind her with some embarrassment, and then quickly ran away. That Eden is almost built, and the environment here will not be inferior to your hometown. Sun Jiao said with some difficulty. Can you, don't abandon this place. How can I abandon this place? Jiang Chen laughed. This is his second home. So cunning. If you kiss me, Xiao wants it too, brother-in-law. Sun Jiao shook her skirt coyly and winked at Jiang Chen playfully. Ahem, can you please not use that name? Jiang Chen said embarrassedly. The word brother-in-law made him feel so guilty. But why? He felt so happy in his heart. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621. Don't forget, we have an airship. Wearing a cute pink apron and a pair of white bunny slippers, Yao enthusiastically carried the steaming hot pot to the table with a pat 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 sound. Yao has always been very hardworking. On the other hand, Linling is completely the other extreme. Holding chopsticks in her hand, Linling is staring at the piles of fresh vegetables and raw meat with a sharp gaze, and her small tongue is looming between her lips. There's hot pot to eat. Hehe, delicious hot pot, don't just wait to eat. Help Yao a little. Jiang Chen opened the packaging bag of the conjured ingredients and poured the beef rolls with ice chips into the plate. Looking at the eager Linling, he complained. The storage space has an extremely powerful fresh keeping function. In a sense, this is really a convenient ability. No, it's okay. Hearing Jiang Chen's concern, Yao's face flushed, and her little mouth opened and closed softly. It doesn't take many people to help prepare the hot pot. Sister Xiaorao is enough. Did you hear that? Yao said it's okay. Linling raised her chin proudly. Jiang Chen looked at her in shame. He didn't understand what she was proud of. Just as Yao said, hot pot doesn't need to be very troublesome to prepare. The family sat around the table, and the soup was boiled after a while. When putting the dishes into the hot pot, Linling's movements were very diligent. Seeing the food she put into the pot with her own hands cooked fragrantly, she, who can't cook, felt very satisfied. This is also one of the pleasures of eating hot pot. Of course, the greatest pleasure of eating hot pot is to sit together as a family and chat. Jiang Chen was glad more than once that he chose to confess the secret to Sun Jiao and Yao instead of weaving a beautiful lie about his origins. One lie requires 10 lies to cover it up. When the lie is exposed, the estrangement between close people cannot be solved by a simple "I'm sorry." Unlike now, I can sit at the dinner table and chat with the girls about the interesting things that happened in that world without any scruples. Look at the envious expressions on their faces and listen to their opinions in another world. As he talked, Jiang Chen talked about the future group, Mindanao, and finally the Black Ship Organization. Black Ship Organization? How can someone be so stupid? If they want to become a bug, they can just do it themselves. Sun Jiao stuck out her tongue and threw a piece of beef into her spicy red mouth, chewing it happily. Compared with the herbivorous Yao, Sun Jiao is an out-and-out carnivore. Of course, because of the effect of the genetic drug on the metabolic rate, she can't gain weight, no matter how much she eats. That's not the case. Compared to her sister, Sun Xiaorao's opinions are often more intellectual. I heard that before the war, NATO also used the advantage of democracy to launch a propaganda offensive against PAC and successfully incited the rebellion of the South Asian people. Didn't the PAC Mechanical Brigade led by Sister Junhua participate in the suppression there? Rebellion. This is different from the Black Ship Organization. Jiang Chen sighed. It's the same. Linling swung her chopsticks and said leisurely, human beings are always full of unrealistic fantasies about things outside. Foreign lands, foreign provinces, foreign countries, and extraterrestrial civilizations that expand the phenomenon set to the planetary scale. It's the same. How will they live? How will they solve the problems we face? It's really desirable. Well, that's probably it. Behavioral science calls it distance beauty, and the desire for beauty is often blind. Jiang Chen looked at Linling unexpectedly. Look, what are you looking at me for? Linling was a little embarrassed by Jiang Chen's gaze. Her face flushed, and she said viciously, I didn't expect Linling to say something so profound occasionally. Sun Jiao's red lips curled up, and she said jokingly. Yao also nodded and looked at Linling with an incredible look. That's enough. After all, I'm a scientist, okay? Don't look at me like that. I'm older than all of you combined. I'm not the kind of half-baked person who woke up from sleep and spent more than 20 years. Linling's face flushed, and she waved her fist in anger. Everyone laughed. Sun Xiaorao, who was sitting next to her, gently touched Linling's head. For girls, being old is not something to brag about. Linling pouted and blushed as she enjoyed Sun Xiaorao's touch on her head and stopped talking. Sun Jiao raised her head and drank a mouthful of coke happily, while casually saying, but when it comes to the world outside the stars, I always feel it's very far away. Yeah. I can't imagine it at all. Yayo yayo also echoed in a low voice. Compared to the distance in space, the distance in time is even more confusing. In 100 years, whether I can see the day of the decisive battle is a question. Jiang Chen joked. That's not necessarily true. Linling raised her head and moved her ears, saying, there are many ways to extend your life. At this point, she turned her face away a little embarrassedly and said in a textbook-like arrogant manner, after all, if you die so soon, I will be very bored. The lifespan of a cyborg is much longer than that of a human. And the higher the degree of transformation, the longer the lifespan. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then he started laughing. Laugh? What are you laughing at? Linling said, slightly annoyed. Linling is an honest child. Zhao Rao said with a smile, her eyes flickering with interest. Yayo will be very lonely too. Yayo raised her hand and said with courage. Because of her slow growth, Yayo, who is clearly in adolescence, still has no signs of development. According to Linling, at her current growth rate, she will still look like a little girl in 10 years. In theory, her lifespan will also be very long. Sun Jiao sighed and said in her usual straightforward style, in that case, why don't we all live forever together? Sister, in a sense, immortality is a curse. Zhao Rao said meaningfully. Really? Can living forever be called a curse? Sun Jiao said nonchalantly. But if you stay with interesting people, I'm afraid that, even if the years are long, you won't be bored. Zhao Rao looked at Jiang Chen and sighed. Eternal life. It is indeed very attractive to those who hold power. Thinking of the secret of eternal life revealed by Boyu of the Twilight Church, Jiang Chen suddenly looked at Sun Jiao and asked. Speaking of which, Sun Jiao, where is your hometown? That is, the number 71 shelter? No 71 shelter? It's near Hangcheng. What's wrong? Chewing the food, Sun Jiao tilted her head and said casually. It's decided. Jiang Chen suddenly stood up. The goal of the expedition will be Hangcheng. Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen in surprise and swallowed the food in her mouth. Are you sure? Hangcheng is 500 to 600 kilometers away. There are zombies, aliens, looters, mutants, cannibals lurking along the way. A strong lone traveler may be able to cross such a long distance, and a caravan protected by mercenaries may be able to barely pass, but for a large target like the army, to cross such a long distance, it will first put a terrible pressure on logistics. However, Jiang Chen smiled slightly. Don't forget, we still have the steel airship. Chapter 622 War. Hundreds of meters in the sky, the flag of Nak was flying. The sky was pale, and the light of the morning sun illuminated the side of the steel giant. Order. These three large white characters were firmly engraved on the shiny steel. It was a giant beast that conquered the sky. The steel chimney on its back exhaled white mist, and the super long gun barrel on its abdomen pointed ferociously straight ahead. Named Order Hammer, this is an electromagnetic gun specially developed for this order. It can launch a mass projectile of up to 100 kilograms, with a maximum shooting depression angle of -70 degrees, and a suppression radius of up to a terrifying 350 kilometers. As the super long-range main combat weapon of the order, a honeycomb-shaped Fireball 1 launcher is suspended at the bottom, which can pour out 200 rockets in 1 minute, destructively suppressing long-distance ground targets, and making its own logistics cry. 4 12.76mm anti-aircraft machine guns make up for the shortcomings of the airship's close defense. Two laser anti-missile devices can accurately intercept most homemade guided missiles. The above is all the weapons of the order. Because of its large size, poor mobility, lack of shelter in the air and many other factors, the order can only provide limited fire support to ground units far away from the battlefield. But compared with fire support, the battlefield positioning of this steel behemoth is still long-distance transportation, air carrier, and helping the army to deploy quickly. In this dangerous land, there is no unit more suitable for long-distance travel than this flying above the clouds. Power armor, mechanical exoskeleton, rifles, bazookas, ammunition. Batches of war equipment were pulled up to the belly of this behemoth by slings to complete the preparations for war. In order to save space, the airship only has liquid food. These nutritional mixtures are produced on Anger Island. Both the nutrition and taste are far from the stuff made from zombie juice and mutant fruits in the 6th block. Be careful. You have an incendiary bomb in your hand. If it breaks, I guarantee you won't be able to get even the slag out. The supervisor wearing an officer's cap stood by the elevator and shouted, directing several slaves to install the rocket rack on the sling and fix it, and then pressed the bell. With a faint sound of electricity, the sling was pulled onto the airship. Standing on the observation tower of Camp 27, Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at the scene under the airship from afar. Why not use robots? Standing next to Jiang Chen was Wang Xiaowu. Hearing the marshal's question, he immediately answered. According to Wang King, in order to avoid trouble, we have to find some work for these slaves. Jiang Chen nodded. That's true. However, compared with the rapid development of the present world, the end of the world has only high technology, but it cannot be converted into production capacity. From those who use muscles to carry materials, it is even difficult to give people the feeling that this is the 22nd century. For example, with the continuous resource transfusion from Mindanao and the Singapore-Malaysia Special Zone, the robot assembly plant on Angkor Island can produce 500,000 robots a month. Although the technological content of these housekeeping robots is not high, compared with the service robots in the 6th block, that are so realistic, they can even be said to be just single-function toys. However, if the factory in the 6th block is asked to produce these robots, it is impossible to achieve a terrifying output of 500,000 units. The same is true for the Phantom helmet. If 3D printing technology is not used, and the cost is not considered, at most 1 million units can be produced in a month, but the production capacity on the other side is 20 times that of this side. However, in the same way, with the technology of the present world, it is impossible to produce T-series power armor and K1 mechanical exoskeleton. The production capacity on the end of the world is low, but the production process and production technology are incredibly high. How are the preparations for the expedition? Jiang Chen asked. We can set off at any time. Wang Xiaowu stood at attention and said. Jiang Chen nodded again. He was very satisfied with Wang Xiaowu's work, and he was also relieved about this expedition. Since the beginning of this year, NAC has conducted a spring conscription, and the original corps have been expanded from 2,000 to 5,000. The entire NAC's military strength has expanded to 15,000, becoming a force that cannot be underestimated in the entire Asian region. After returning this time, he made some adjustments to the deployment of the 3 corps. From the 6th block to Shengxiang town, the defense of the entire Wanghai city area is under the unified responsibility of the 1st Corps led by Cheng Weiguo. Cheng Weiguo is one of the earliest survivors who followed him. He has been the head of the corps since he was a militia training at the Fishbone base. Jiang Chen is very relieved to leave his hometown to him. The 3rd Corps is led by Zhao Gang, who is also a survivor who followed Jiang Chen in his early years. He doesn't talk much, and his nature is loyal to Jiang Chen. He has been loyal to Jiang Chen since he followed him. After this adjustment, he will be stationed in Jia City, guarding the southwest gate of Wanghai City, and protecting the important trade route south of Dianshan Lake. The expedition will be led by the 2nd Corps. Although the net load of 500 tons is not small, the carrying capacity required for each soldier is close to 200 kilograms. This includes the equipment, ammunition, supplies, etc. required for a soldier to fight, not just the weight of a person. In order to maximize the combat capability, this giant airship is only equipped with 400 combat personnel, 50 flight attendants and 20 logistics personnel. At the same time, the supply of this steel airship will be provided by small airbag airships that are not armed. All the soldiers selected to participate in the expedition are the elite of the 3rd Corps. They have participated in the breakout of the insect tide, the rescue of the Fishbone base, and the counterattack on the city center. They are veterans. They are armed to the teeth with mechanical exoskeletons, and their equipment and fighting spirit are impeccable. Jiang Chen is the captain, and Wang Xiaowu is the deputy captain. After the expedition, the next captain and deputy captain will be selected, based on their military merits. At the same time, the airship will be retained as a separate combat unit, independent of the 3 major corps like the Hunter Corps. Looking at the gradually rising morning light and the airship being prepared, Jiang Chen squinted his eyes, letting his heart surge, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Please ask the marshal to review the soldiers. Wang Xiaowu nodded. Jiang Chen nodded for the third time. Turning around, facing the neat and uniform military uniforms and the raised heads on the square of camp number 27, he gently closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. Let the surging blood in your chest be released with a roar. Gentlemen, I like war. Without any extra words or impassioned declarations, the prelude to the expedition was simply and roughly torn open. Bring civilization to the ruins. Put the shackles of order on the barbarians there. With the guns in your hands, plant the flag of Nak in the heart of the wasteland. And what responded to Jiang Chen was also the earth-shaking shouts and the raised rifles. War. Chapter 623 10,000 meters in the sky. War. The soldiers' roars resounded over Camp 27. The slaves carrying supplies trembled and stopped their work, staring blankly in the direction of the camp. The soldiers on guard clenched their fists and hammered on the badge on their chests, silently raised their hands to their foreheads, and saluted the Nak military salute to the comrades who were about to go to the battle. The roar echoed in the open space of the square, and also echoed in the hearts of every Nak citizen. The residents of Camp 27 saluted spontaneously, paying heartfelt respect to the soldiers and their marshals who were going to the battle. Han Zhenhe, standing between the queues and looking at Jiang Chen, still had an indifferent look under the brim of his officer's hat. With her right hand gently pinching her chest, Zulu looked at the watchtower with a hint of intoxication in her eyes. The review was over, and everyone boarded the ship. With various emotions in their hearts, the soldiers said goodbye to their loved ones, and took the elevator to the deck of the Order. As the survivors of Wanghai City looked up, the steel giant rose high into the sky, passed through the oppressive clouds, and began to move towards the hinterland of the continent. Standing in the captain's room, Jiang Chen gave orders to the communication microphone. Azimuth 220 degrees, speed 40 knots. Forward. Power room received. The upper limit of the vortex engine output power increased to 75%. Engine start. Under the power of the tail propeller, the airship adjusted its course. With a slight tremor, it began to accelerate. At this moment, standing in the captain's room were Jiang Chen, who served as the temporary captain, Deputy Captain Wang Xiaowu, Chief of Staff Han Zhenhe, and Sun Jiao, who served as the captain of the Marshal's personal guard. War is always the best way to enhance prestige, and it is also the only way for Jiang Chen, who cannot often appear in front of the public, to ensure his prestige as a marshal. So he decided to personally serve as the captain of the Order and lead this expedition. The departure procedure has been completed, and the flight route has been determined. After the departure, everyone returned to their respective rooms, leaving only Wang Xiaowu in the captain's room. At this moment, standing in the small room, Sun Jiao looked at the clouds outside the small round window and sighed softly. I didn't expect that we would be separated again after finally being reunited for a while. My sister will definitely be sad to stay at home alone. After careful consideration, Jiang Chen adopted the suggestion of Han Zhenhe, who personally served as the first captain's office. According to the intelligence brought back by Zhao Chenwu's merchant team, there is no particularly strong armed force in Hangzhou, nor is there any anti-aircraft weapon that can threaten the Order. It can be said that the risk of this expedition is very low, but the significance of establishing a base in other provinces is very important. After all, this is the first time that the Nak troops have set foot outside Suzhou and Hangzhou province. This first time should be achieved by Jiang Chen, the marshal himself. However, Sun Jiao, the marshal's wife, has a lot of opinions about Jiang Chen leaving immediately after returning here, and strongly asks Jiang Chen to take her with him when he goes. Jiang Chen certainly wants to take her with him. However, when he is away, someone must be in charge of the marshal's mansion, and only Sun Jiao can be qualified for this person. So Sun Jiao had to make the best of it, and put her sister next to Jiang Chen to accompany Jiang Chen to Hangzhou instead of herself. On the one hand, it was to protect Jiang Chen's safety. After all, Sun Jiao's fighting ability was still very good. On the other hand, it was to prevent him from doing something unsafe. Sister is such a strange title. Sitting at the table, Jiang Chen flipped through the notebook he carried with him and complained casually. This notebook recorded the things that needed to be paid attention to during this trip to Hangzhou. These intelligence were collected by Zhao Chenwu's caravan and the mercenary union managed by Zhao Guoping. The two major local forces, the Empire and the Federation, are competing for control of the Hangzhou nuclear fusion power station. Note, you can win over one side, or eliminate both sides. Huaxing Quantum Computer Research Institute. Note, there may be technologies related to the industrial production of quantum computers. Dr. Sun, a cyborg, suspected of having intermediate artificial intelligence. Note, it is recommended to destroy. There was one last item, which was not written on paper, but was remembered by Jiang Chen. The secret of eternal life. Come to think of it, the captain's bedroom is really big. Sun Jiao put her hands behind her back, walked to the soft bed, leaned over and patted it. In order to save space, the rooms for ordinary crew members on the airship are all 4-person dormitories. In addition to the 2-step wide aisle, there is only a table by the round window and bunk beds fixed to the walls on both sides. They are called beds, but in fact they are just sleeping bags. Only senior officers have independent rooms, but the area is also surprisingly small, and the accommodation conditions are slightly better than sleeping bags. Only the captain's room has a slightly more spacious space to place some personal luggage. Yeah. I'm a little hungry. When will dinner be served? Yeah. Sun Jiao was obviously not very satisfied with Jiang Chen's reaction. However, she was not discouraged. She put her hands behind her back and walked behind Jiang Chen with light steps. She leaned down and whispered in his ear. It's rare to be alone. Why are you so bored? The warm air blew in her ear, and the faint red color climbed up Jiang Chen's neck and earlobe. Looking at the red earlobe, Sun Jiao's mouth curled up a wicked smile. She enjoyed this feeling very much. Bullying the person her sister liked, watching him blush, and his heart beat because of her. This kind of ambiguous sense of inequity made her feel indescribable pleasure. From the different ways of enjoying food, we can see the subtle differences in the personalities and attitudes of the two sisters. For example, for the same delicious cake, compared with her sister's way of eating it in one bite, Jiao prefers to spread the delicious cream on her lips, and then lick it with the tip of her tongue to taste it carefully. Jiang Chen did react, and close the notebook. Rather, Jiang Chen had been enduring, since she leaned over to make the bed in an alluring posture. After all, he still had to discuss battle strategies with Han Junhe in a while, and it would be disrespectful if his clothes were stained with a special smell at this time. However, the slightly hot breath beside his ear blew away the rationality in his heart. Brother-in-law? Aha, you can't do this. Obviously, it's only been less than an hour since I separated from my sister. Sun Jiao fell hard on the bed with her back, gently pushed Jiang Chen, and at the same time, she pretended to be innocent and fanned the flames in his ear. The wrinkles of her military uniform made her feel a little uncomfortable, and she couldn't help but breathe a little when she spoke. Can you please stop calling me that word? Jiang Chen said viciously. This word always made him feel inexplicably guilty. Although she was tied up and couldn't move, Sun Jiao still blinked mischievously. No. You will regret it. What are you going to do? Sister, The naughty smile turned into a short exclamation, echoing in the metal-walled room. With the inaudible roar of the vortex engine outside the window, it went farther and farther in the sky at an altitude of 10,000 meters. Chapter 624 Combat Deployment. The airship soon left Dianshan Lake behind. When passing the Tapu River, many soldiers saw the Garden of Eden located along the Tapu River, which was photographed by the reconnaissance pod through the ebb. The round egg with a diameter of several kilometers, the graphene transparent plate glowed with colorful oil in the afternoon sunlight. These soldiers serving in the NAC have more or less heard that after the Garden of Eden is built, it will reproduce the most beautiful scenery before the war. Although they can experience the life before the war from the virtual reality device, it is true that in the hearts of these survivors, they still want to live in such an environment. Instead of lying on the thatched mat among the ruins, reminiscing about the past, let go of Sun Jiao, who was lying on the bed limply with the last bit of strength squeezed out. Jiang Chen covered her with a quilt, tidied her clothes, and got up and left the room. In order to determine the landing point and the matters of contact with various forces, he still needs to discuss with Han Junhe. When Jiang Chen pushed open the door of the conference room, he saw Han Junhe standing in front of the long table, and it seemed that she had been waiting for a long time. "Sorry, I'm a little late." Scratching the back of his head, Jiang Chen pretended to be calm and said as he stepped into the room, "It's okay." Han Junhe didn't care. She reached out and pressed the touchscreen button on the long table to open the holographic map. But at this moment, she suddenly wrinkled her nose and looked at Jiang Chen expressionlessly. "There is a strange smell. Did you spray perfume?" "No." Jiang Chen was embarrassed and coughed. "Let's not talk about this. Let's get straight to the point. I hope to hear your opinion on this expedition." Han Junhe nodded, put down his arms, and pointed the laser pen in his hand on the map. According to the intelligence brought back by the Zhao group's caravan, there are more than 310,000 survivors in Hancheng. The threat level of the alien species is medium, and the density of predators is high. There are a small amount of farmland on the west bank of Poang Lake, where mutant fruits are planted, as well as shell valors transported from Wu City. In addition, because it is the provincial capital, there are many scientific and technological resources and damaged production equipment buried in the ruins that are worth recovering. According to the expedition plan, the first step is to establish a military outpost in the local area and establish a supply point. The second step is to build an airship landing tower near the outpost, and the third step is to build a settlement for survivors. After speaking, Han Junhe folded his arms across his chest again, and his voice was filled with the eternal coldness. The fourth step is to destroy the alien species nest and declare rule over the Hancheng area. Those who resist will be eliminated. War is always the best means of negotiation in this wasteland without any order. Jiang Chen deeply agrees with the strategy proposed by Staff Officer Han. However, if possible, he still hopes to take the route of peaceful evolution and lossless push. Although he declared to his soldiers "I like war" at the expedition mobilization meeting. But to be honest, he didn't think this thing was a good thing. Permanent population? Almost twice as much as Wanghai City. Jiang Chen looked at the labels on the map and sighed. Not necessarily. After continuously absorbing slaves from the big mine, the permanent population of the 6th block has grown to 80,000. Without considering the floating population, the total population of Wanghai City has also grown to more than 200,000. Han Junhe said. Looking at the several signs of the survivors' settlements on the holographic map, Jiang Chen continued to ask, "What is your suggestion for the Empire and the Federation? Win over one of them, and break the balance between the local forces. After disrupting the situation, establish a new order." Han Junhe said expressionlessly. "Is it necessary to be so troublesome?" Jiang Chen asked with a smile. "This involves the issue of supplies. The airship has limited carrying capacity. While carrying more than 500 members, it also carries various exoskeletons, power armor, Aurora 20, Yunzi 51, etc. There are only 5 100 kg class mass bombs, and about 200 rockets." Han Junhe continued. "Aren't there light airships to transport supplies? This involves the cost issue." Han Junhe said, "If possible, before the supply point is established, we have to collect supplies as much as possible locally, including construction materials for military outposts and landing towers. So we have to contact local forces." Jiang Chen stroked his chin and thought. Obtaining supplies is not very difficult for him. It's not possible on the airship because of the weight limit. But on land, as long as he returns to the human world, it will be easy to get batches of supplies. "That's right." Han Junhe nodded. "On the other hand, considering that we are preparing to conquer this place, not plunder or destroy it, then we must control the war within a certain limit." The discussion about the future of the survivors of Hancheng soon ended. Back in the bedroom, Jiang Chen was surprised to find that Sun Jiao had tidied up the messy room. She even changed her messy military uniform into a casual purple linen dress. If it weren't for the unnatural blush on her cheeks, it would be hard to see any traces of the battle just now. "Huh? You recovered so quickly?" Jiang Chen looked at Xiaorao and asked curiously. "No, my bones are still sore now." "It's so rude." Sister looking at Jiang Chen's half smiley eyes, Sun Xiaorao's cheeks turned red, and she shut her mouth obediently. In her current condition, she really didn't have the lingering feeling to continue with a dirty joke. Come to think of it, it's time for dinner. Yeah, why don't you go back and drink the nutritional mixture? Jiang Chen joked. My brother-in-law is the best. Sun Jiao smiled and hugged Jiang Chen's arm, and even rubbed against him intimately. Hearing that bad taste word again, Jiang Chen gave her a look of giving up, and took out 2 pizza boxes like a magic trick. He bought them from the restaurant of the future building. At that time, he packed more than 20 portions at a time, and almost scared the chef. How do you know I will definitely bring food? My brother-in-law is a person who never treats himself badly. Sun Jiao pointed to the microwave on the cabinet. Besides, the nutritional mixture does not need to be heated. Let's go back after eating. We will probably reach our destination in the early morning. Go back and have a sleep. We have to go down to work tomorrow morning, Jiang Chen said, while putting the pizza box into the microwave. Sun Jiao, who was already sitting at the dining table, swinging her 2 white and delicate jade feet, said with a smile, "What are you talking about, brother-in-law? My room is right here. Don't make a fuss. We have to get up early tomorrow." Jiang Chen sighed and returned to the table with 2 hot pizzas. "Then we have to go to bed early." With her chin supported by her 2 white arms, Sun Jiao looked at the hot cheese barbecue pizza cutely, her pink tongue licking her lips faintly, and whispered in an ambiguous tone, "Feed you, but it's my sister's order." Putting down the fork, Jiang Chen held his forehead. It seems that this dinner cannot be eaten. It was late at night, and the soldiers got into their sleeping bags and soon fell asleep. In the captain's room, Wang Zhao yawned, finally checked the map, turned on the intelligent driving system, and then pulled down the mobile bed from the wall. The vice captain's room was too narrow, and he was too lazy to go back to sleep, so he simply crawled into the captain's sleeping bag and soon began to snore loudly. The order sailed steadily above the clouds. It passed Hangzhou, flew over Huangshan, and headed towards Jingde. Chapter 625 Water Plant Gang. The last day of the double monthly ticket. Brothers, please vote. Hangzhou, located west of Poyang Lake, was one of the more developed cities in the inland of the Pan-Asian Cooperation Huangsha Zone before the war. But after the nuclear war, everything was the same. Even a prosperous city like Guanghe still couldn't escape the doomsday-like nuclear attack. However, the people living here are still much luckier than the people of Guanghe City. The invasion and nuclear attack started from the coastal areas, so they had enough time to evacuate, take refuge in shelters, or evacuate to the rear with the army. At this moment, in this desolate ruin, in the suburbs east of Hangzhou, next to an abandoned water treatment plant, a death claw was deftly tearing open the chest of a predator with its sharp claws, and licking the bright red internal organs with its long tongue with barbs. The man's eyes were gouged out, and from the whimpering mouth, he was not completely dead. The blood flowing around also proved this. Judging from the bright red color, the death claw had just started eating not long ago. At this moment, a dark cloud descended over the lucky Deathclaw. The sudden disappearance of the sunlight made the Deathclaw feel unhappy, so he stupidly raised his neck and looked up into the sky. The amber pupils suddenly shrank, and he was stunned, and even stopped chewing. Woo! There was a whistling sound that broke through the air. Dust rose up to a height of 5 or 6 meters. Dozens of bullets poured out in an instant, tearing the Deathclaw and the poor corpse into pieces. Confirmed kill. The thumb moved away from the button on the handle. The gunner sitting in front of the computer turned off the safety and answered skillfully. Beasts are beasts after all. The Deathclaw, which can fight against the power armor, can't even withstand the pilot's short press of only half a second in front of the steel airship. The landing point is confirmed to be safe. Human life signals have been found in the nearby water treatment plant. It is suspected to be a predator group. Good luck, Commander. Understood. Jiang Chen, wearing a mechanical exoskeleton, turned around and looked at the soldiers of the Royal Guard behind him. These soldiers are the elites of the Royal Guard, led by Sun Jiao. Although there are only 10 people, each of them can easily deal with the miscellaneous soldiers that are 5 times their own with their own equipment. Okay, guys, cheer up. Now, Hangzhou is under our feet. I don't know if the people hiding in the water plant over there are enemies or friends. We will go to meet them now. Recite the combat rules silently. Open the safety. Put on your backpack. Tie your shoelaces. Do you understand? Understood. With a uniform shout, the soldiers of the Royal Guard suddenly stood at attention and punched the badge on their chests with their fists. Then now, let's go. After speaking, Jiang Chen raised his hand to open the gate of the parachute door, pressed the button on his shoulder, and jumped out first. Damn, what is that? The man with a cigarette in his mouth looked at the steel airship nervously, sticking his head out of the window. Order, what? Why is the name so ugly? The bald man leaning against the wall said, while oiling his machine gun. I have seen the logo of NAC. It seems to be the survivor base in Wanghai City. Another minion said, Psycho, what are you doing running so far away? The man with the cigarette butt looked at the torn dead claw with lingering fear and cursed inwardly. The water plant gang is a well-known group of plunderers in the nearby area. After occupying the water treatment plant and closing the sluice gates for water supply in the eastern suburbs, they sell high-priced purified water to the nearby survivor villages and also engage in human trafficking and occasionally rob passing caravans. Because of their strong combat effectiveness, even people from the Empire and Federation have to go around them when they encounter them. It is said that the leader of this group of vicious criminals is a woman. You are so noisy. I asked you to watch the door, but you didn't do it properly. Don't you know that there are guests coming to discuss business today? A lazy voice floated from behind, scaring the cigarette, but Manta dropped the cigarette, butt on the ground. Wearing a bloodthirsty crocodile leather jacket, with a hot body vaguely visible under the ragged cloth, a woman with dyed red hair slowly stepped through the door. Her cuffs were stained with blood, as bright red as her painted red nails. The messy hair stuck together into a few tufts. There was a bit of unkempt beauty on her wild face. However, apart from the predators, few people would be interested in this kind of beauty. The machine gun man squatting by the wall swallowed his saliva, quickly glanced at the leader's two long legs, and retracted his disrespectful gaze. Scorpions are feminine and like to have sex. But even so, this piece of fat meat is definitely not something that these minions can eat. As for who can have the honor to fight this poisonous female scorpion, they are all big figures in the gang. At least they must be very powerful. For example, the man behind her. There is a centipede-shaped scar on his pot-lid head without hair, and his fierce triangular eyes exude a bloodthirsty and murderous light. Jiang Xiao, a lone traveler active in the Poang Lake area, is used to using a sniper rifle and is good at using daggers. He is employed by Wang Zi as her gunner. Occasionally, his employer will provide him with special services or let him serve her with others, and he never refuses this. Morality is something that only a few lone travelers have. Everyone has their own set of standards, and he doesn't care about meat or vegetables. Wang Zi narrowed her beautiful eyes and stared out the window. The unlucky guy who died outside just now was the second in command of the gang that attempted to usurp the throne and imprison her. Fortunately, Wang Zi discovered it early and strangled the conspiracy in the cradle. After digging out his eyes with her nails, she threw him to the death claw. The bright red on her nails was not nail polish, but the blood stains left at that time. However, the death claw was only halfway eaten when the poor guy was relieved of his pain. The sudden intrusion of the airship disrupted her punishment for the traitor, and the rain of bullets from the sky crushed the death claw and the traitor into mincemeat. She had heard of the name NAC, but she had heard it from the caravans and mercenary groups heading east. From those awe-inspiring tones, Wang Zi felt a little dread, especially the strange-shaped airship, which made her even more confused about the details of NAC. If it was another force that offended her, she would have taken the plunderers to fight with weapons. However, she remained cautious about this unknown force. Something was thrown down from that airship. The man with the cigarette pointed out the window and exclaimed. The machine gun man and his buddy next to him looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Jiang Xiao, go upstairs and take a look. If they don't heed the warning and come over, you kill them. Wang Zi narrowed his eyes and ordered. The man with a shaved head nodded, silently turned back, and walked towards the stairs with his sniper rifle. With Xiao as a sniper, Wang Zi was relieved. Although the bullets falling from the sky were scary, they were not very scared hiding in the bunker. Then, she turned on the headset under her bun and shouted arrogantly to the bandits of the water plant gang. Sixth brother, Take the brothers out and ask them what they are here for. 5th brother, carry out our cannon and get ready. If they dare to act rashly, shoot down that flying thing for me. Yes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.